Good morning. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It's Thursday, April 30th, 2026. It's just after 9:30 in the morning, and we are here to talk about the budget again. It got passed out of the Senate yesterday. I think that one was on a voice vote, and we have the chair of Senate Appropriations, Senator Perchlik, with us today. And I think this is the first time we've asked the chair of Senate Approach to come and sit in the hot seat. I always have to go over there, but it's nice to have you come and have 11 people ask you questions.
Good.
How long do you have?
I did tell transportation that I'd be back at 10.
Well, we can be a little. I'm sure we have a few questions. Anyway, welcome, Senator Perchlik. And if you want to introduce yourself, and if you want to start off, and then I know we're going to have a few questions too. But tell us about your thinking.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for the committee and for Chair Chai for having me in. I think it is a good practice. Hopefully it's a new tradition to have Senate come and try to explain ourselves for what we've done. I want us to start by thanking both the governor's work to start the budget. I mean, the Senate, we only have the budget for like 3 weeks. We obviously take testimony before that, but we really rely on the work that the governor does starting in September, and then the good work that the House does at the beginning of the session. We've understand how much work you put into it and the hours. Like, I don't know if there's a committee that meets more than House Appropriations. So you're the hardest working committee in the legislature, I think. So we understand that, and thank you for your work.
You're not buttering us up.
I'm not buttering you up. If we were a unicameral legislature, your budget would be the budget, and that would be fine. But we don't have that system, so we have a system where the Senate gets to take our crack at it, and then we will work together and present that to the governor. But overall, I explained to the Senate that we kind of took our approach to the budget was to build a stool. You often hear the three-legged stool. So you have to have all three legs equal for a stool to work. We have 4 legs, which you might want to also call a chair. So the 4 legs of this chair are a balanced budget, obviously. That's the foundation principle that we have to stay within our means. Second chair is meeting the basic needs of Vermonters, is food, housing, healthcare, clean environment, and also just the functioning of basic government. So we're funding that base of government so that Vermonters can see their government working for them. Third is saving for an uncertain future. So these are all our reserves, our set-asides, the contingencies, and also taking care of our obligations in the future. So a big part of that is pensions, making sure that we're meeting those future obligations, which we didn't as a legislature not too long ago, that we're having to make up for. I think also in this area, you could talk about education, like we need to invest in the future. But we also, fourth leg that I think sometimes isn't focused on in these kind of opening remarks is economic development. And we need to make sure that we have a strong economy for the future so that we can have revenues to meet these other basic needs and a functioning government. So we did several things that I would put in this economic development bucket that the House and even the governor hadn't done, because we think that's important for the state government to be a hand in that economic development.
I think you still have a stool. I think the balanced budget is the seat.
Okay, yeah. Get that way.
Thank you.
Well, we can build some interesting furniture. And as you all know, I don't need to tell you the tough process. There's a lot of tough decisions that have to be made. We didn't like making some of these decisions for sure. But as you all know, though, you have to make these decisions to get to the balanced budget. And I'd say some of them were probably rushed or not. We don't have an iron grip on everything, but that's part of the process and what we're looking forward to the discussion with the House. So I wasn't going to go through it because there's just a lot there. So I'm more interested to hear what things you want to talk about.
Well, I know we have some questions. Does anybody want to start? Sure.
Well, I saw the language about funding for new positions being contingent on the revenue forecast. Can you just say a little bit about your, what you talked about?
Yeah, it's an interesting new idea. There was some concern on the committee of for the future of our economic health in the state. In that positions in particular, if we have those senators that were around last time we had a rescission and we had to lay off state workers, were the ones that were said we should do something different than we didn't really prepare for that. But you can't prepare for the unknown economic impact. But if there is a rescission and we have to lay off people, wouldn't it be better not to hire them in the first place? So that's the idea is we don't want to hire people that say, oh, well, now we have to cut 15% of the workforce or something like that if it gets to that level. So the idea was to have some kind of this contingency. So if we get to the July forecast and there is a downturn, the jobs don't go, I think there's 7 of the jobs don't go into effect, but that the Joint Fiscal Committee could override that. They could say, even though there was a 1% reduction, we think these positions should go into effect.
I just have a quick follow-up, because there are a couple of positions in the treasurer's office that are not funded through the general fund.
Right.
And why were they put into that mix?
I think just for that reason, because you're saying they were put in that. Yeah. Good question. I think we looked at the positions that we created, but I think a fair argument to say that they shouldn't be.
Okay.
Great. And were there any of those the Rural Health Transformation Grant people? I'm not remembering.
I can't remember.
I'd be worried about those positions not happening.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Because that's something we'll look at.
Yeah.
Did you have something?
No, I was going to talk about the process.
Oh, okay. I have a question. Some of the things that you eliminated, possibly at least a position and maybe anything else to do with the Ethics Commission.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be what's a difficult discussion, I'd say. Definitely varying opinions in the Senate on that. I think just there's some turmoil around the Ethics Commission, some disagreement about the workload and the number of positions and responsibilities, and without the executive director around, and feeling that are we going to be able to fund all the work that they need to do? The letter we got from the board was that the House thankfully gave us a position, but they gave us the work that is equal to a position. So it didn't feel like they were really ahead of the game. And so I think for a variety of reasons, kind of felt like there was more work to be done than that one position was a place that we could save for other positions we wanted to have. And we were trying to keep to the same number of positions. So we stayed even without some positions. So we basically used that to fund another position.
Okay. And did you keep the language in for the Ethics Commission that you had put in? There was some stuff about delaying timelines on.
I think we didn't, we just took it all out. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
But if and I know there was some other language just from the news about House, maybe Gov Ops is talking about other things. I think it's maybe around that.
Well, that's all about the disclosure form. That's a separate.
But I heard that they were maybe going to talk about other issues around the Ethics Commission or workload of Ethics Commission, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, not sure. The kerfuffle's been around.
Right.
The disclosure form, and I haven't, to the exclusion of everything else that I've heard about it at this point. So I don't know.
Yeah.
The question. So I have Tom, and then it looked like maybe Dave had also.
Senator, just from my portfolio. So there are a couple of questions. First of all, we had put in money for a legal aid response to phone calls. They've had more than doubling of their calls in the last 2 or 3 years. That was cut. They desperately needed that position. Also in the agricultural section, office position, a business office position to help handle the up to $90 million now of federal money that's coming in is proposed to be cut. And then there's a whole different reconstitution of monies that were being that we had appropriated to programs like Crop Cash, food bank, and then the money looks like a lot of that was redirected simply to local food shelves, which is probably one of the more more inefficient than giving it to the other organizations, at least in our opinion. So just want to throw those out, see if you have some clarification on how those happen.
Yeah, and I have a list of the food shelves. I guess, yeah, we could have that discussion in conference about the efficiency. I guess if our committee was thinking it was more efficient to give it right to the volunteer food shelves, that's kind of first line of defense, if you want to think of it that way, where folks that find themselves short on food go to their local food shelf. So giving it directly to those, I think it was 127 or 227 different organizations throughout the whole, all 14 counties. So the idea was to give right to them instead of to the organizations that then have to funnel it down. So that I think we were thinking it's more efficient to do that way, but open to hear
The
it.
food bank will get the food cheaper. Food shelves are going to be buying the food from the food bank.
And the language allows the food bank to give it directly to them in food or in dollars.
We'll figure it out. I'm just pointing out what's out of our, I do appreciate, to balance that off with some appreciation. I appreciated that the money for the immigration attorney was retained. But, my disappointment in overall has been that our budget also did not fully fund services for people who are being, who need them, legal services in particular, that need them desperately in the face of what's been going on. And the recent, yesterday's Supreme Court decision, while it may not affect us directly, is just another indication that the federal government is not very supportive of people who are not white.
Agreed. And I think maybe the legal aid hotline is an example of us, moving fast. Did the immigration attorney kind of felt like we were at least putting something towards that effort. We were finding money for other priorities, and that's one of the places we found the money for the hotline. I don't think we fully kind of understood all the impacts of that. It's hard for us to take a testimony on everything as we're moving things around. The ag, we had taken out the money for the farm fees. That was something that kind of went back and forth. And then when we put that 253,000 back in the budget, I think that the other position was kind of a casualty of that discussion and not having direct advocacy for that position. The construct of taking money away from other food groups that was your other discussion. I guess we already talked about that, but yeah, it was to try to find money for the local food shelves. And that was a proposal put in front of the committee to take it from the other food programs instead of taking it from somewhere else.
And we'll have that.
Did you have another question?
No. We'll just have the further
$1
conversation.
million for the farm and forestry, is that yours too?
Sure. And then in the contingency, and I haven't talked to the advocates since we passed the budget on this. S60 it's an important program.
Yeah.
They were requesting 15.6, and one of the issues that came up directly from the department, from the agency, was capacity. It's another, to potentially start the program means that they need to hire somebody to run the program, and we didn't fund it at this point in time. I think we put language in that said, we want to create a system, but we also don't want to fund it until we have enough further conversations, say next year. So there's just a question of whether or not this is a case. And again, I haven't talked to the advocates, so I don't know where they came down on it. But the way that we left it was sometimes putting 0 in when the agency won't be able to fulfill the needs that they have.
It's better than.
It could be better than putting something in, preparing a program that only has a few dollars in it, comparatively speaking. We needed, the program won't succeed unless it has millions of dollars in it. So just something to pay attention to.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Dave.
Could you describe what you may have been able to do in the realm of primary care, if anything?
Yes, so Senator Lyons, our chair, our committee on Health and Welfare presented a construct to the Appropriations Committee to fund the primary care, I think we're calling the primary care case management payments that used to be made. So, and I have a handout that, or JFO could show you that where that construct took money out of the budget to fund those primary care payments, to keep those primary care physicians supported. And we also, for the AHEC payments, changes we made so that the primary care doctor's loan repayments should be, I don't know if fully funded is the right word or more funding, but I think those are the two that I'm remembering. I don't know if there's others.
Well, JFO will be presenting too, so we'll get more of the details.
Yeah, they can show you how that construct was made. Because sometimes if you just go through the spreadsheet, it's not clear. So if you see both on the food programs, what things were cut to fund the local shelves, and on the primary care, what things were cut to fund AHEC and the primary care payments is good. It's at least makes that clear, whether you agree with it or not. It's obviously different.
John, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's a couple of small items here. The VORAC grant was reduced by half. What kind of conversation did you have around that?
Right.
It's up here, we understand here.
Right. Was it half from the governor, or half from what you guys had? I thought we did 300,000 and you had did 500,000.
500 and then.
Oh, yeah, I guess I was thinking in my mind that 100,000 they have in their base, so it got to 300,000, but yeah, you had 300,000 more. Yeah, it's a good program. We support the whole outdoor economy. I think it is a position of growth opportunities for the economy, but we're looking. Yeah, agree with the premise. Wanted to keep it in there. We're looking for monies for other priorities.
Some still in there.
And that was one, yeah. Like the serve, earn and learn, we looked at that, but there was more support for that.
Yeah.
As far as things when we were looking for money to fund other things. So.
And I'm just going to raise one other thing here because I know AOE has been, they've had some recent questions here.
Yeah.
About Read Vermont.
Yeah.
They sent you folks some information about that. Here's some information about this is after.
Yeah. Right.
But just curious.
Yeah, I think it was some.
Not get into too much conversations.
Yeah. And I think there was some maybe miscommunications within the administration of AOE and finance and management at the beginning, why it wasn't in the BAA, because they kind of should have been in the BAA maybe, but it wasn't. And there was some definitely confusion about it.
Confusion about that.
Yeah, well, so that BA is long gone and
Right.
he complained about it in the.
But that flowed through to the budget because they were like, well, now you didn't do it in the BAA, but you do it in the budget. Our education committee didn't put it as a priority. I think that we're obviously focused on other things, but sure. I think had some questions about the whole program and didn't want to just sign off on that without more oversight.
But it should have been in their budget. If it's a program they're doing, it should be in there. Like, we didn't change their budget for FY 27. It sounds like you didn't change their FY 27
Right.
budget. So
And
if
we
they
talked
didn't
about,
put it in, then that's their issue.
Exactly.
Not our problem, that's their problem.
Exactly. And without our education committee saying, we looked at it, we really want you to add this. We didn't have that. So we weren't going to, we had them in. Yeah.
Right.
And we're all for literacy and we like the direction of the program from last year, 2 years ago, when they started focusing on that. But yeah, like the chair said, they didn't put it in their budget and the governor's budget, use it somewhere else. So we couldn't quickly do
there's a
that.
line item there for adult ed and literacy. So initially, is it in there someplace, but it's not. It's
Yeah.
not part of that category.
That's
here at all.
Right.
This
Yeah.
is First.
Yeah.
Check on our.
Okay.
I just wanted.
Yeah, no,
to-
thank you.
Well, a few more questions, Marty, you go ahead and answer.
Yeah, I noticed that you had $1.5 million in for the educational transformation grants as part of 955.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that because we
Yeah.
thought we had that all covered by previous money.
Yes, there is money in 935, is that what it is? And 955. Our education committee wanted more money. They thought that for these transition to happen and mergers to be successful, more money. I think they wanted $5 million more. So we found them 1.5 million that they could work with to help with the transformation costs.
The presumption is though that will be built into some legislation that's.
It would be part of, well, yeah, either the Senate Education Transformation Bill or in the conference committee, that gives them a little more money to work with specifically for the like merger grants.
Okay, but there is no legislation right now that indicates that.
Correct. I mean, this, the money that's already in that bill, this would be additional money for that bill.
And that's one time?
Yeah.
You just
Yeah,
pulled it
send
out
it
of
one
somewhere
time.
from one time,
Yeah.
you cut other things to give them more money. And did you get specifics on how they would use the money at this point or just general?
It was more general, but mainly for the merger grants, I'm calling them, maybe there's a different term that's used, but basically to support the effort to combine their
Okay.
school
But you don't
districts.
really know how much they need because
Yeah.
there's no bill in.
We were just trying to set a little more aside if we found it, we didn't find it.
I also noticed that you pulled the $1 million that we had put back into the CIT fund.
Yeah.
To help that deficit, and you removed that.
Yes. It was an easy place to find money to not fund that. And then we,
Knew they'd take it.
Yeah, but we also took the tech mod fund, which we did,
Yeah.
but I noticed, at least in one
the
version,
contingency, we put half of it.
half of it in the contingency.
Yeah.
I did that.
Administration would rather us not do that. I mean, rather us not spend it than put
Oh,
our spending in the contingency, but we disagreed with them on it.
Yeah. Wayne, did you have a question? Oh, okay.
What I promise.
No, I said you could. I wondered if you wanted to talk briefly about the contingency list. Do we know anything where this is just sort of, when the left here, we knew we were not counting on any contingency for anything.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, my understanding is we're just slightly ahead. So
yeah,
I don't think we're going to have the full contingency list.
Right.
The idea was like, we also underestimated what we had at last year by quite a bit. So you never know. So we thought we heard a lot of advocacy for the farm security fund. So we added that in there. We heard advocacy from the administration about the tech mod fund, in particular around the ERP project and how more money is going to be needed for that. And so that's why we put some money in there for that, the farm security fund. And then the 30 million is the same language that we had last year for some of the money.
is that the same 30 million just being further carried forward
No,
or
it's-
that's
it'd be an
still,
addition.
it'd be an additional 30
It
million?
would be an additional 30 million. And then there's the $5 million for the
Human services case.
caseload reserve. So
Are we thinking it's going to need to be,
Yeah.
I know.
this goes to the same, this was proposed kind of around the same discussion around the position contingency trigger. Like if there is a downturn, if we have rescissions, if the forecast is lower, then we might need more money from the caseload reserve to support Vermonters if we really have to scale back.
Yeah.
Or if maybe that'd be another place for funding if the federal government continues to scale back and we get the full ramifications of the cut to healthcare subsidies, things like that.
Two others from me. You added 2 million to the rural industrial development program and 12 million to UVM. So tell us about your thinking.
Okay. The rural industrial program, it's S-327, which was the economic development bill in the Senate. When it moved to House Commerce, they put in some language to kind of revive the rural industrial development program. There's still a little bit of money in there, but because of the way the program is set up, heard from folks that it could be more used if we change the parameters.
Right, so we changed the allowable uses, expanded the allowable uses to federally impacted.
And we wanted to add money to that for other programs that could make use of that.
Even though there's already still $2.5 million in the program without adding more to it.
Yes, because we're particularly looking at programs, and I'm not ashamed to say one of it would be in Montpelier for the federal building,
Right.
old post office. That's just a key building for the downtown
Right.
economic health. There's opportunity to do housing behind there and just control that building. It's not going to be cheap just to get control of it because the federal government is not really being the best partner, as you might imagine, and they're not telling the city what the environmental contamination is. So there needs to be an evaluation of the building.
Right.
But you need to control it. They won't let them go in and do that now. And they won't let them look at the environmental reports that were done.
Oh.
We have some information from some of the contractors that did it that told them that there are PCBs and asbestos
Yeah,
building materials, but they don't know how much.
right.
So that's a concern there. And then we also heard about the Newport project, that there's an interest specifically in that project. And we didn't think we thought adding more money would be able to get the program going with the new rules and at least have some more money so that those projects.
There is
can.
plenty of money to do both of those projects now in the contingency fund, in the development fund. There's already 2.5 million still in there, and so they could use that money instead.
Well, I don't know if it's enough money, or we can talk more about that. And then it would mean nobody else that wanted to change to the program to get that, but
Yeah,
that's.
it's a nice program just to develop during COVID, and we have programs that are going away.
Yes.
And then the 12 million, now go to Tom.
12 million, yeah, so the Senate construct is, they asked the governor for 20 million, the governor put in 15 million. The Senate construct was like, okay, well, if we kept 15 million, but 12 million for the multi-purpose complex on the campus, and the freedom and unity grants that you put in, instead of taking those from the general fund, also taking that from the higher ed trust fund. And then also doing the housing project at Johnson that we were told had difficulty getting into the capital bill, putting it in there as well. So it's another project that have funding. That's how you get to the 15 million.
Did you have anybody from the higher ed trust fund board come in and talk to you about?
I am the Senate member of the higher ed trust fund council committee.
Interest there?
But it is, so yeah.
Like the treasurer didn't come in and talk about it, or?
Not specifically about that I remember.
And did you talk to the other recipients of the money in the fund, the scholarship money from
Not on,
colleges or BSAC?
not officially on camera. Like VSAC came and talked about their budget and maybe, but I don't think they spoke about this.
Okay.
We did talk to them separately, but we didn't have them officially testify. That I can remember.
So regarding both the rural thing and then quick question about the education money too. We noticed that there's language that changed the rural money from essentially a loan that needed to be paid back or given back, and it's being changed to a grant. And the question that I had for the attorneys yesterday for this week was, when you change something like that, how does that change the contract? Did you take testimony on how it would change? If I sign a contract that I'm receiving money that I'm supposed to pay back, and then all of a sudden I'm being told that it's just a grant and I can keep it. I know and these may not be parallel, but I know through the VHIP program, if you take a loan, it's one thing. If you take a grant, it's considered income.
Yeah.
You have to pay taxes on.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious to know whether or not there's going to be any impacts, positive or negative. I mean, it's easy to think that if it's just a grant, and I don't have to pay it back, that's a positive impact. But if they also get a tax bill at the end of that, that's a negative impact, or it's not expected. So I'm just curious. And then I guess the same kind of legal question goes, the trust fund is meant for scholarships. Did you provide language in this document that allows this to be taken out and be used for other purposes?
So on that point first, so we did have notwithstanding language in there. Necessarily, if you're going to take it out of the higher ed trust fund, you have to notwithstand the language that says that you can't take it out for anything that's other than the scholarships, and also the language about only taking out 5%. So we do have notwithstanding language in there. The other thing I forgot to mention, which I think gained this whole idea of legs, because at the beginning there wasn't, I would say, enough support for it. But part of the main construct is to take part of the cannabis excise tax and pay back the higher ed trust fund, the 15 million. The language at one point it was to say, just pay it back and then end it. The one as it passed, that 20% of the excise tax goes to the higher ed trust fund continually. So it would also increase the amount of money for scholarships going forward.
But that takes it out of the
Take it out of
general
general
fund. That's just taking it out of the general fund.
It's just a decision to-
Paying it back with general fund.
Right.
Everybody wants the cannabis tax.
Or using it for social equity programs or wherever.
Yeah, so we're taking away from the, it would be like if we had 15 million in the general fund, we would just use that for the
Right.
payments, but we're taking it from the higher trust fund and paying it back from the general fund, but totally understand that. The other question was on,
Change from a loan to.
oh, right, so we would be retroactive, at least my understanding of the language that was added in House Commerce. But well, at least what I was advocating for is a grant. I don't know if there's a way to say like, if you could pay it back, because of course nobody wants to pay it back if they didn't have to. But the entities that we're talking about, at least that I was told that would be participating in this would be development corporations. So I don't know if they pay taxes. So I don't know if this is like, I think the program is more seen for rural economic development authorities would get this money. So I don't know if they have the same tax implications than like a developer of a project. But no, we didn't talk specifically about the impact of counting the grant as income if the grant goes to somebody that pays income tax.
And the other piece, I mean, we'll continue. I mean, we probably have some time to figure this out. Yeah, I mean, because the other piece of this is when we give money using the property transfer tax as an example, and I think this goes to the use of a cannabis tax as well, while there is always notwithstanding language that, oh, we can take this cash and use it any way we want. At least with the property transfer tax money, that money, if you accept that money, you are required to have some form of perpetual affordability in order to keep the housing. You're using taxpayers' dollars to subsidize housing, and therefore we want you to, and I mean,
Yeah.
Even VHIP for all of its good stuff, I mean, it only has a limited amount of affordability. So if we turn these things into grants, if we give kind of like the Vita question, right, or the veggie question, if we're giving money to a corporation, what's the benefit to the state besides the initial development? Is there some way that this is always going to help the taxpayer, help the corpus of the state in the same way perpetual affordability does for housing that's getting the state money?
That's a great question. Yeah, would definitely support making that part of the program. We did add language to the UVM money that it had to meet the prevailing wage requirements that are in the capital bill. So since it's not in the capital bill, we made sure that was added. But if for a housing project that is used with the rural industrial development money, then having that permanent affordability would be something that seemed to make sense.
Chip has a quick follow-up and then Mike.
Well, Mike hasn't, go ahead, Mike.
Thanks. I just want to share my perspective on that 12 million, the 15, whatever. One of the things I have been surprised at over the last year or so when I talk to high school kids is the number of students that aren't even thinking about college plus of the cost. And I would love to see more money directed towards scholarship for Vermonters. And the idea that we're going to take 12 of that for UVM, which is only 30% Vermonters, feels like we're getting off track here.
Yeah.
My perspective on that.
Yeah, and I think that perspective is shared. I think that the difference here that made it something that could pass was of the extra money, the windfall estate tax that went in, that was something like 20-something million. So even with taking the 12, you're still ahead of the payments that will be made for scholarship next year. So we're not taking a step back. Definitely would be more if we didn't take it out. And then this will be paid back. And if it was to continue, the caveat they're just taking it from the general fund, it would be more money for scholarships in the future years after 3 years, because you'd pay back the 15 million, then it would be growing after that. So I think that's why, although there were people I think voted against it in the Senate because of this, that brought the majority around.
Just as a follow-up, that buildings are nice, but as a pun, for people who have an edifice complex. That may be more important than guns.
I just wanted, I wonder, I have to go back to the language, but when you talk about, I'm assuming this is an outright appropriation of the 12 million. Did you talk about kind of parsing it out based on the fundraising, efforts of UVM?
Right. Not officially, but it's something that, yes, has been discussed, I'd say. The idea has been kind of thrown out there is when is it needed? What's the best way of doing that? But the way the language is just, it's a clean appropriation.
Any other questions for Senator Perchler? Go ahead, Jay.
Not a question. This is a comment.
Okay.
And it's spinning off and this comment about education. You know, I do find it also troubling that UVM only is like 25% of Vermont students. I also find it troubling that this is entering into the discussion on schools eventually here, that we're spending a tremendous amount of money on the lowest performers in the schools. And I think in some places statute, there's a law that says we shall not give any extra money to your high achievers. And we're never going to have high achievers being able to go to those colleges if we don't have that performance in those schools. So I'm concerned going forward that we do spend the appropriate amount of money on across the board. You want to call it equitable, whatever, should be equitable. So that those high achievers actually have the tools and have the experiences in school that will enable them to be able to go and perform at a college level.
Agreed.
Right? Here's your question. Okay. Great. Senator Perchler, thank you so much for coming in. We will see you again. I know we will, but thank you. To your
Thank you.
Escape while you can. Thank you. And so joint fiscal, start with Emily, who's coming and going.
Bringing Amy with me.
Okay.
I did a hilarious thing today where my kid who had been sick for 3 days managed to get to preschool, so that was a win, but I managed to bring the wrong computer to the office.
Could be a problem.
She got to school, that's the win of the day.
Priorities.
I don't need a pretty much.
Amy and her computer is what we.
Amy is gonna help me drive.
Spreadsheet.
What do we have? to
Just
say?
an
Yeah. I think it's
Oh,
Spike
good.
and his friends.
Yeah, if you want to watch an Elmo video, I can bring that up. Can't help with budget. But anyway, for the record, Emily Byrne, and I have Amy Pope with me from the Joint Fiscal Office. I apologize, I have to run at 10:30 for a meeting, but
Then you'll come back if we're still going.
I can come back. And Grady can walk through some of the language changes in case you have questions about those details, but I'll start with some of the spreadsheets. Senator Perchler walked through a lot of things, so probably makes sense to start with base changes, and I will just touch on the things that the Senate changed. Just the flag.
Okay.
So there was nothing that changed with the Pay Act or anything sort of on the top side of things with the base, so that is the same.
I do have a question on that because
Yep.
we did all hear about the
Yes.
questions. And I know Amy is going to be working on that. Is it too early to ask how that's going? Are we sort of covered on that?
It looks like we are not done having conversations with the administration.
Okay,
Looks like we should be covered.
Okay.
But we are still working on it.
all right, great, thank you.
To be sure, but I think they
We're not worried.
plan for it at this point.
Okay,
So the first thing that changed on line 10 with the Sergeant at Arms, we added $60,000 to put funding for the single point of entry in the base budget. You all know that that is a change that has been made that was not contemplated in the original build of the Sergeant at Arms budget. So that adds in funding for contractual help to help there.
Just funding what they're doing right now, or is this a continuing?
This is to fund what they're doing right now, but in January of next year.
They were covered for FY '26.
For FY '26.
This is paying for FY '27, just while the legislature's in session.
Okay, okay, so this is, but, all right. But is it intended that will there be $60,000 every year in the base budget for them for this
Believe so.
process?
Yeah.
But this is not the longer term construction project.
This is just for the security guards that are at the door right now. The next change is in the judiciary. This is an increase to the amount of money set aside to pay the sheriffs in the judiciary. You had added $250,000. The Senate added an additional $480,000 to bring the additional increase for the judiciary up to a little over $700,000.
Before that,
Sorry.
they removed the mediator position and the ethics position.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I should have flagged those. Yes, the mediator,
About the mediator and why they removed that, but so can do that later. Okay.
the ethics position. Yep, those two positions were removed.
It's line 12 and 13, correct?
12 and 13, correct. Line 17, this is the judiciary one that I just spoke about. This brings it's approximately $60 an hour for the hourly rate for the sheriffs at the judiciary, is that amount of money. The amount that the House put in was a little less than what was asked for in the budget adjustment, so it actually would have decreased the hourly rate, so this brings it to 60 an hour. The next three lines, on lines 18, 19, and 20, the Senate, the House had reduced the vacancy savings targets at the state's attorneys and sheriffs and the victims advocates down to 0. They brought it back up by 50%. So there's still a 50% of what was in the original GovRec target for vacancy savings for those three entities. The next line on line 24, the grants administration funding at the Center for Crime Victim Services. This is the $100,000 general fund amount was reduced. There's still money being transferred into the Crime Victim Services Fund. The amount that's appropriated to go directly to the network was also reduced. And some of the funds that go in, some of the money that's going into the special fund will be available to the center to use for grants administration, is the change that they made there.
And that's an allowable use out of that special fund?
Yeah. Yes.
That's in deficit.
So maybe in deficit. There may be some additional analysis on this change that may be helpful for you all.
And I guess I should say, it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, just keep an eye, particularly on your own, so that when we get to a committee of conference, assuming we vote to have one, that you'll all have to be doing that research around your items. Okay.
So then we go to line 26. Senator Perchlik spoke about this. This is the reduction of the additional administrative services position at the Agency of Agriculture. On line 29, at the Secretary of State's office, another $270, almost $300,000 to support the implementation of S206, which is the licensing of childcare workers, which I know is in the House.
Yeah, it hasn't passed yet, and if it doesn't pass, then that money will be available for, so that's something to keep an eye. Whose would that be? Childcare worker, is that, well, it's Secretary, it's all Mike, because it's childcare and Secretary of State, okay. You can chat about that. Okay.
Okay, so then next change is down in line 38 with AHEC. So this was mostly a small technical change. There was not quite enough money initially added into the budget for the loan repayment program. So this fully funds the loan repayment program for AHEC. Provides the match at AHS Central Office. On line 40, this is funding to the governor's budget, and then as passed by the House, had prescription co-pays going up to $4 and $8. This buys it back down to $1 and $3.
And so I didn't realize that was state money that was going into the So this is general fund money. I'm looking at Nolan now.
Matt.
It's matched. Okay. Okay. But we're saving Vermonters money by doing this. Yes. Okay.
On line 41, this is, sort of two things are happening here. One, the we had put the money for 211 in the DCF budget. It's a matchable event, so it was moved to the AHS central office, but then it was also reduced by 50%. So only providing half of the additional ask for 211. The next two are related on lines 43 and lines 44, the Bridges to Health program. So the first line in line 43, the House had put it in the DEVA budget, but it should have been in the Health Department budget. So it moves in line 44 to the Health Department, but then the Senate also adopted $150,000 reduction to the Bridges to Health appropriation. So that's what's going on there.
So both those are Department of Health. That's the place.
Yes, it should be at the Department of Health. We had put it at DEVA incorrectly originally.
Oh, okay. They cut it by 150.
Then they reduced it. In line 45, this is a technical change. This per the administration needed to be in the substance misuse appropriation at the health department, not public health. So that's a net neutral with line 47. And then on line, where am I now? Free and referral clinics, that didn't change. On line 49, this is the other half of the 211 change. So this was what the House had put in. This is it coming out so that it can move to the AHS central office on line 41.
Where's 211?
Well, it was in the kind of main DCF.
It was in the DCF admin, I think.
Okay, but you've been the one following it, right? Or
Dave and I both have.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So
All right.
moving now to,
Central office.
Yeah.
But I think I want the people that have been focused on it to spend their
Yeah,
time on it. So you guys keep going on that. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, then we're on to the next page. On line 56, the opioid recovery employment program. The Senate decided to move that to the opioid fund.
Which is can I just say something
Yes.
about that? The whole point of the opioid settlement fund is to try to move things to base if they seem to be working, that the thought was that these things should be in the general budget and not funded through the opioid settlement. Yeah.
The Senate was aware of that and put intent language that in the future should be based on that
But they didn't want to be base funding this year.
this year, correct?
Because they needed the money.
That's part of the PMPM thing.
Are there contract?
Yeah,
They're aware of that and made language.
okay, thank you.
All right. Examine that. All right.
The next one, jump down to line 71. This is an additional position to fund S218, which is relating to the reduction of fluoride contamination in state waters.
So that assumes that the bill passes.
Yes. And this is right, you all have all the H bills, you can account for the H bills in your budget. The Senate, as they pass bills, has to start creating a list of things that they're gonna fund in their budget.
Great.
If they pass it over here and it goes, it's gotta be in the budget. So there's a couple of places where things are both in the base and in one time that are accounted for.
Okay.
That you'll see throughout. And then on line 72, sorry, yeah.
Yes.
On something before this.
Okay, go.
Emily, on line 62. That was the amount of money that was in the FY26 budget, right?
Correct. So this one we had is 850.
Exactly.
We talked through the way that it has to show, so the governor added $200,000. So we had it as taking out 850, but this is more of a technical presentation type correction from JFO where it's showing that the governor added 200, you take out the 200, and then you take out 650 on top of that to get to the total 850. Yeah, so it looks different than how you saw it, but the numbers are the same. Yeah.
So how's that show budget?
It shows up as the base budget for corrections is $850 less, $1,000 less than what the governor had requested.
So where did the 200,000?
The 200 was new,
Yeah.
right, in the governor. So we're showing it here as a new governor's ad. So it wasn't showing up on the last version of the spreadsheet. So then the House zeroes out that 200, which gets you the first 200, and then takes away another 650, which gets you the 850. You can almost see it better in the difference from the gov column where you have negative 200 and negative 650. That's your 850.
Oh, on the line above it, you have to look at both lines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you look at both.
That's the 850.
Yeah. And that was just, to correctly reflect that there was a new an ask of a new $200,000, not taking out 850 from the base.
Right.
Very weedy. But we can't help ourselves. Okay, jumping down, where were we? Line 72,
Safety.
flood safety. The House had included 2 new positions for flood safety. The Senate only included 1. And then we jump down to the very small change in line 78. This is related to the reserve calculation. So how much you need to put into the stabilization reserve in FY27. Recall that the stabilization reserve is based on prior year appropriations. You'll see this more on the reversions sheet, but there were there were 3 reversions that the House had booked. In talking with finance and management, those reversions were, 1 reversion we changed the amount of, and then 2 reversions were from current year appropriations. The right way to do that is not to revert the money, but to actually reduce the appropriations in the C section.
Okay.
But what that effectively does is save a little bit on the reserve calculation, because if you're spending less in 2026, you don't have to reserve as much in 2027. So that is how
So $40,000.
whole 40 grand.
Right.
That was
Little things in here that-
My red card. East Kingdom, way back when.
Right.
It's 40,000.
So, and then the very last thing that changed in the Senate version down on line 97. So this is based on H 933, the miscellaneous tax bill, which has not yet passed the Senate. But the construct, as it came out of Senate Finance to Senate Appropriations and is currently on the floor, reduces the downtown tax credit by $500,000. So the total downtown tax credit is 3.5 million instead of the 4 million that was passed in the House construct.
Gave us another $500,000 revenue.
Correct. So when all is said and done, when you compare how much base money is being used for one-time funds, the Senate has a little bit more than the House going
So
to.
you're saying the 2847 is base can be used for one time.
Correct. And so one thing before we move to the next sheet that I will note that you will also see on the base sheet. So there's $4 million that was added to the renter credit as part of the yield bill construct that passed out of the Senate. I think it passed 2nd reading yesterday. It'll be 3rd reading today. But the Senate only moves $100 million to the education fund. And then the House had 104.9, the Senate has 100.9. The $4 million difference is added to the renter credit as a one-time increase to the renter credit to help renters with property tax increases. To simplify things for the tax department, we put the money in the base for the renter credit, just so that they have one big pot of money to spend the renter credit out of, rather than have a separate appropriation for them to utilize. But the intent in the language and in the bill and for all purposes is that it's a one-time increase and that it will be out of the base budget in FY 2028. As such, it shows up, it is a B section appropriation, a B, but it's not, it shows up on the one-time sheet. So it's a little confusing, but just to keep it clean in terms of what is really one-time and what is really base. We've put it out quick.
Okay, that's base.
I will fly through the one-time sheet if that works. I'll be a little late to my next meeting, but that's okay.
Where are you going now? Sorry.
Oh, to the base sheet, this one.
One time?
One time, excuse
So
me.
there's two one times. One has got everything, and then this is general fund one time?
Well, I should ask you, do you want me to run through the general fund? No, why don't I?
If we go.
Yes.
I'm gonna go back. I can come back.
You didn't start the sheet. Unless
No,
Grady's-
we're gonna go through it fast.
Which one time sheet?
Yeah, I can do whichever one you want me to do. How about that?
Let's just do the,
That's fun. Okay.
this one that has the gray out.
He's got it up, so that's the best.
Okay.
It should be,
It's general fund one time as opposed to all the one times from other places.
okay, so on line one, as I alluded to before, there were some changes to the reversions. They're booked as reductions in prior year appropriations as opposed to versions into FY 27. So there's a small change there. We can look at the reversion sheet when I come back. What that ultimately does is changes the amount that gets carried forward from FY 26 into FY 27. There's a little bit of a difference. And again, it's probably best if we look at the reversion sheet to go through that, but it's mainly attributed to the program at A&R, and I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. The emissions repair program.
Compare, the other one that won't die.
Yep, the House had proposed taking the full appropriation back. Conversations with the Agency of Natural Resources. There has been some spending this year, so not the full appropriation isn't available. They also have two contracts that are out. I believe the House conversation was have A&R cancel the contracts. The Senate was a little bit more let the contract sit, but that's something you can decide during conference committee. And then on line 5, again, in the universe of couch cushion exploration, the Senate reviewed the state PACE reserve fund. Don't want to get too far over my skis in terms of explaining it, but there is a fund that was created when the PACE program was created in case there were any loans that were defaulted on. There weren't very many loans issued, and it's been around for a while, and so far no loans have been defaulted on. The Senate decided that that fund isn't necessary anymore, and in the event that there are one of the, I think it's 12 or 14 loans that are out there, defaults, then the General Assembly can appropriate money to deal with that at that time. Yeah.
So that'll completely go away or just.
It will go away.
Yeah.
So I don't need to know what the acronym means.
Well, I don't know.
We heard about it with Kim.
Property, this is probably the residential
Right, it
program.
is. Yeah.
Property assessment, I don't know, so it's the one where you can invest in energy improvements and run it through your property tax bill.
Right.
I don't need to.
No, it's 60,000.
Yeah.
You don't need to know. Okay. Provider stabilization.
Yeah, so where are we? Provider stabilization. This was reduced a little bit. So there are a few places I will try to flag them that were part of Senator Lyons' construct to fund the primary care payments. So this is an area that they reduced funding for the primary care payments. Lines 12 through 16. So the House had broken out specific line items related to H 938.
Right.
H 938 is not done in Senate Health and Welfare yet. So to simplify it and to sort of leave space to reorganize during conference if needed, based on whatever happens with 938, all of the $21 million is appropriated.
Under shelter development.
Under shelter, and it's not, I should have changed that explanation. It's not just shelter development. It's, when Grady walks through the language, he can show you what the language is, but
That's important.
it highlights everything and points to 938, I think.
Yeah, because that's just problem with the shelter development.
piece of the budget that will have to be reconciled with that bill.
Right.
When all is said and done.
Right.
But the money, the total amount of money hasn't
This
changed,
hasn't changed.
both in the base and in the one time.
She didn't draw from there. Okay.
So the next change on line 27 is the local food shelves funding that Senator Perchlik spoke about. Line 23 is the legal aid helpline again that he spoke about that was removed.
That was line, what? Line,
23.
thank you.
22 and 23, yeah. Then the next change on line 25, the reduction to the Meals on Wheels program. This was part of the construct to move funding to the local food shelves program. Line 27 in the AHS central office, this is the general fund. And then it also has the federal fund match for the primary care payments that Senator Perchlik spoke about. Line 28, additional funding for post-permanency adoption, mostly at the Lund home. I believe Easter Seals and NFI are the three entities that do post-permanency adoption. Line 29, this is the VOREC grant reduction Senator Perchlik spoke about. So this would be as it passed the House, there was $600,000 for VOREC, including the 500 in one time plus 100 in the base. This cuts it in half to $300,000 total for VOREC.
Line 34.
Yes.
This is the deli counter. We used to call it in corrections. Want one of those. I want some for this. Do you want, this was not in anybody's request. It's a personal request by a senator, put something in, but I'm not sure what it is. Except giving them $25,000.
I think it's like a resale shop, a thrift shop that does, the proceeds go to some charitable endeavor. And my understanding is they are trying to build a new building and need $400,000. A grant to help them with.
Okay,
Yeah, what we have for
capital
that,
fund.
building communities grants, to do exactly that, and that's where they can get the money. So anyway, we'll be talking about that one. There's other places to get that.
Before we go on to, back on the Meals on Wheels change there,
Yeah,
the fact that those Meals on Wheels people talk to the shut-in people a lot is a big service.
yes.
Taking money out of there and just giving it to a food shop is,
Mhm.
doesn't provide that same kind of level of interpersonal help
Right.
that some of these people need.
Right,
The difference in food appropriations between our version and the Senate's was our version had 1.9, and the Senate version 1.3. So there was, it's not even equivalent money that was just
right,
shifted.
they cut,
It was cut.
Yeah.
Significant.
yes.
The other one is just above that, it's the first generation home buyer program that we didn't fund, and this is in for 100,000, is that right?
What line is that?
Yes, 33.
33. So we can get some questions on that.
Oh, yeah, that didn't
It
get
doesn't
done.
seem like a lot of money for a program that, I mean, first time. I know that, I mean, we funded a program in the past.
I thought it was funded
For
somewhere else.
VHFA,
Was
well,
it
it was
funded
a
in miscellaneous tax?
It was VHFA program,
Yeah.
but I don't know directly.
I thought we had 350,000 for downtown, right, James?
So there's a separate for miscellaneous tax for the, Yeah, that's not, first objective, well, that is an expansion of the tax credit for the down payment assistance program, that's a different.
That's a different program than this.
Yeah.
That program, that phrase, first generation homebuyer program, is not new. It just, we didn't address it at all.
No, I don't know where that came from. What work to do for you? Here. Okay. You guys can take a look at that. Okay,
All right, I will keep going. Line 27, the 20th anniversary funding. This is a technical change. We had it in ACCD. It needed to be in economic development, so that just moves it to the right department. Line 38, funding for the Rural Industrial Development Program. Senator Perchlik spoke about this. This is adding money to that fund. Line 39, additional funding for the Small Business Law Center at the Vermont Law School. And in line 40, another 150,000 to the Small Business Development Center.
Yeah, and so I think the law school had expected to get something from the feds. This will be, somebody will look at that. I guess this is all yours, Tom. And then it didn't come through, but I don't know why the SBDC didn't ask for the right amount to begin with or what's going on there. So those are two. They're both good programs. We just don't know why they showed up and if we didn't ask them. Okay.
Okay, so line 41, this is the unfunded disaster relief up in the kingdom. The House had funded this by doing a transfer to the, I can't remember the name of the resilience fund. Per conversations with the administration, they requested that it be a direct one-time appropriation to the Agency of Transportation out of the general fund for this purpose.
And is it clear how it's supposed to be used so AOT doesn't use it for other things?
I think you should look at the language.
Supposed to go to the town.
There's more language.
All right,
Right.
we'll have Grady go over that. We just want to be sure it's going for the purpose that we intended it to go
Right.
for. Right.
Right.
Okay.
In line 42, additional funding for non-emergency medical transports, 300,000, there was 600K in last year's budget. Line 43, AEDs in schools. The House had given it to the Health Department for the technical letter, and upon further review, the Senate moved it to the Agency of Education, which we reviewed the underlying bill related to AEDs, and it talks about the Agency of Education implementing programs. So in line 44, additional funding for the Language Justice Project, which is a bill, which is contemplated in S 243.
See that over here? Do you know where that is?
I believe it's in health and welfare or
House Human Services.
Human Services.
They last right on the phone.
Okay, I also, this may be the wrong one, but I thought this was something that where there was money in the Office of Racial Equity that they could use for this purpose.
There was translation money that was in that office, and we need to confirm that though with the
Yeah.
office. And so,
What is language justice?
well, so for example, when COVID happened, this is a small project that provided, instead of like written translation, they used WhatsApp to get news out fast to lots of different communities in lots of different languages. And it was really effective during COVID, during floods, and has been held as a national model. Anyway, I think it's a really important addition to, because people aren't always going to go to a website and know where to find, the information and.
I think I may like the task, I may not like the title.
It's translating emergency services, or not necessarily, because they used it in 935, the emergency management bill. They tried to tap into this as well.
Right.
Or public service announcements in Swahili and all these other languages.
It's a nonprofit organization that's called the Vermont Language
So, okay,
Justice.
so that's what it is, it's the name of the, it's not
Yeah,
a
it's the name of
program,
the
it's the name of the organization. I
Yes.
didn't get that.
Good, so there might
Exactly.
be funding we can find from elsewhere, but people will look into that. Okay.
Okay, moving on to the next page.
Yeah.
Line 47. The House or the Senate reduced the funding for the CBO shelter by 50%. In line 49, the Senate added $100,000 to start up a new adult day programs, I believe in Washington and Rutland counties. That's new. Line 50, Senator Perchlik spoke to this one, but there was a reduction in the funding available for NOFA Vermont's Crop Cash Plus, and the Farm Share programs. And this was part of the construct to move money to the local food shelves. Same with line 52. The funding for Vermonters Feeding Vermonters was also reduced to increase the amount of funding available for local food shelves. And then also on line 57, a small reduction to the child and adult care food program appropriation from the House to move, provide additional funding for.
20,000, okay.
All out. And line 58, this is the second half of the transaction of moving the AEDs in schools appropriation from the Health Department to the Agency of Education. On line 59, the Senate did not concur with the House on the funding for BCRD municipal technical assistance. Was removed. And then on line 60, we talked about this. This is the other half of the transaction of moving the 250th anniversary funding from ACCD to DED. But it's a net neutral change. In line 61, this is an additional funding for the biomarker testing.
That's a bill that's in-house healthcare and if it doesn't move, then we'll have that money available. It's 25,000.
Correct. Line 62, the Freedom and Unity grants at the Vermont, at VSAC, excuse me, is moving to the Higher Ed Trust Fund as Senator Perchlik talked about. And the next change on line 65, this is related to S-190. And this is having the treasurer do a study on creating a public employee health benefit authority to put public employees all in one health benefit plan.
Did we ever hear anything about that?
No, that's S-190. It's a
It's
bill.
still in
that-
healthcare.
Yeah, we'll have to see what's happening with, but I know they kept, I don't know where it is,
So,
the money for the amortization study committee that
Yeah,
I
it's
know
still
I
here
have to be on.
Mm.
The 75,000 to the treasurer, right? So is that on the one time somewhere? I'm just not seeing it.
It's maybe down here in these bills.
It's not, it wasn't in a bill.
64, yep.
Amortization study. There's,
That stayed in.
oh, there it is. Okay, I just hadn't seen it. All right.
Okay, jumping down to line 66, Department of Environmental Conservation. This one is related to S-218, the chloride bill. This would be a one-time $200,000 for contracts related to training, I believe.
Right, so if that bill doesn't pass, then that money's also available.
Correct. Line 67, funding to the Land Use Review Board for S-325, relating to Act 250. I think this would be for public engagement around what's going on in that bill. Line 68, to the Fish and Wildlife Department, additional $25,000 for the fishing derby. Oh, and that should be in green, not in red. You didn't add that. They did. Fix that. And then the last line on line 69, this is what I spoke about before. This is the $4 million one-time renter credit that shows up in the B sections.
And then we have all these other,
One-time bills, the Senate did not include funding
for age 67.
for age 67
Or the data brokers.
for the data brokers. Yep.
But they put some money in for 740.
Yep. And this, I believe 740 was still in Senate Natural Resources when the budget left. So the appropriation for that will travel in H 740 if the Senate decides to appropriate funds for this purpose, but it's set aside in case they want to.
So the bulk of the increase of the Senate's budget is in this renter credit. $4 million.
Well, no, because that was that was the money that we were transferring to the education fund. It was 105.9. And in the Senate, they just transferred 100.9 and or 104.9. And the other 4 million is, so it's all the same money. It's not new money. It's that from that 105, 4.9, like.
740, I thought that was for two ongoing positions, so why is that one in one time?
No, there was also for, there were positions and there was something else.
Okay.
which I can't remember what
I
something
think the
else was.
positions are supposed to continue.
It's one-time costs related to contracting, I believe, to set up the database.
So it's just, yeah, and then presumably they would be thinking the next year they'd fund the positions, but this is.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether you can do one without the other. That would be an interesting question to ask. Who would have had 740?
I think I did.
Environment.
Well, it would be,
No, I think
It's not environment, it was,
I did.
it was energy and digital infrastructure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So-
ended up.
Okay, so maybe we could just check with,
I think.
There were two,
I think I
thank
did.
God.
somebody can
I'll
check
go
with
back.
Chair James and see whether this
Might have
even
been you,
works.
Yeah.
Grady, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just know, Scott Moore did some analysis related to this, so we can follow.
Okay. Yeah, it's sort of the question is, does it even make sense to do one, or do you have to do the whole thing? We have a couple of those questions. You reported it out, okay. Thank you. The team supported her. 740, you reported it out, you were right on that. Okay,
Well, I'll talk.
Okay,
okay, so where are?
740, now we're down to page 935. The 500,000 for the Ready Response grant program at the food bank. Senate did not concur with the House to fund that.
I haven't passed the bill yet though either.
Okay,
And then line 80, H955, related to Education Transformation, Senator Perchlik talked about this. They still have the construct that was passed by, there was a little bit of language tweaking, technical language tweaking to that section of the budget that you had that
to ensure that we had the money that we set aside at 955 as we left the house.
yes, and that the money that was in the budget sort of redirected money that was appropriated in Act 73, sort of reallocated it, and then this additional 1.5 is available to the Senate as they contemplate 955 if they determine they want to appropriate more funds.
We don't really know what it's being used for yet.
Right, and in the original money, there was still a balance left over.
I
Yeah,
believe so, yeah.
That supposedly Emily said, yeah, we have plans for that, but it hadn't yet been allocated. So I don't know.
That's my understanding. There's like
I don't know
about,
if this is even necessary.
yeah. Yeah, I think the Senate is working on figuring out that.
Right, I mean, the whole education thing, something we have.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so the next change,
the H
Gray out.
748, that was the bill, got the high risk stamps.
yes, we kept it all in. They,
yep. they can-
that's it.
Okay, they
Dam
did,
safety
okay.
didn't change.
Okay.
The one that did change was flood safety or flood, whatever. They
There was-
reduced a position.
There was 121. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, and then that's all the other bills. So that's all of those. And then dropping down to the line 84, there's still $500,000 moving to that fund. The Senate decided to change the name of the fund to be Radio Equipment and Firearm Replacement Fund. Because they have to replace all their firearms at the same time, just like radios. So the conversation was that they should utilize that fund for both of those replacement needs. There's also language in the budget directing the Department of Fish and Wildlife to review and determine whether or not they should set up a similar structure for their radio equipment and their firearms.
We already have a separate firearms replacement.
Please.
Grady.
In Act 27, there was a directive to develop a capital plan for firearm replacement, but there was no special fund created.
The next change is on line 86. So this was mentioned earlier by Senator Perchlik, but there was no additional money put into the Communications and Information Technology Fund to buy down that deficit. And then in line 87, this is the money that you all transferred for the unfunded disaster relief. And as we spoke about before, this transfer went away, but then there's an appropriation made up above to the Agency of Transportation for that purpose. On line 88, just to call this out, the Senate current construct, miscellaneous tax bill hasn't passed yet, and neither has the yield bill, but has the same construct as the House did in terms of changing the purchase and use tax and the meals and rooms tax, which means that $10 million transfer does not need to happen. So that's not in either version of the bill. And then in line 89, this is where you see the reduction in the transfer to the education fund. And that $4 million reduction is what's utilized for the renter credit.
That's where it gets there.
So when all is said and done, the Senate had about $67,000 left on the bottom line.
That's on the bottom line. There was something that we were concerned about after it left here that we didn't have money for, but it was on the bottom line. Was that age 67? That was age 67, and they took it out.
It
You
was.
had money for age 67. Was it the education? There was something in the
There's something that's, there's another 75,000 for.
Anyway, there's money for it.
Yes.
It's all covered. That's right, the additional,
which probably had.
Was.
but it was 75,
Right,
yes.
75, something else.
I think it was in the ed transformation.
I reported on, now I'm trying to remember.
Now we're all gonna be back.
It was JFO to study pre-K stuff.
That's
Add that to the waiting study that.
That's right.
Doing.
That's right. Is that still in the bill? Is that in here somewhere?
It's not in here somewhere. I'm gonna add it when we get back.
Okay,
The House,
okay.
I think, well, yes, we should add it.
Okay.
Add it to the web report, and then I don't know what the Senate is gonna do.
Right. Take 5,000 somewhere else. Sure. All right, I know you need to go.
The good news is, because I overstayed my welcome here, the meeting is over.
Oh.
I get in trouble. And my phone stopped receiving tech, like today's just my tech day. Maybe got messages, I don't know.
Today is paper day.
I couldn't open my phone.
All
Whatever.
right.
Anyway, I can keep going through stuff if you want. I can go through,
Yes.
Yes, going through spreadsheets.
which we just went through all of the general fund changes, so I'm gonna not touch on the general fund changes if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna talk about the other funding changes, which should be pretty quick. I can track them all. Oh, no, that's easy to track. So, it should be straightforward. So line 3,
Can you tell me just what
Yes.
sheet we're on?
it's the one-time summary sheet.
One-time summary, thank you.
That's big.
It's got, we got total commitment and federal funds and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
there is one, we did have to make one change that Grady caught this morning due to the amendment on the floor of the Senate yesterday. So if you want, we can make new copies of this one that will be,
Remind me which amendment that was.
add an amendment to add a 3 million appropriation out of the pilot special fund for the Agency of Transportation. Chris left, of course, road stuff. I know, wait, thank you.
Okay,
So that was added on the floor yesterday. We've added it to the spreadsheet. We added it this morning, so we can print you new copies of this one,
okay.
if you want that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Autumn?
Yeah.
Thank you. We posted the new one on the web.
Okay,
That changed. But starting at the top on line 3, this is the unfunded disaster relief change. So this comes out of that special fund and then shows up as a one-time in transportation on line 47. The next other fund change that's different from your version is on line 7. This is the global commitment appropriation for the primary care case management funds. So with federal matching funds, it's $3.7 million.
So
That program.
this is the per member per month thing that we used to get when there was one care? Is that what I? Go ahead, Nolan, clear it up for me.
For the record, Nolan and I will join fiscal office. So the one care thing is going away.
Yes.
And so, and one care is like, we don't want them to exist for the sole purpose of paying. So what the House is going to do is reconstitute a payment that used to exist on the primary care case management that long ago got folded in, it can be paid. The AHS already has a mechanism in place to do it, match. So it would be trying to get it per member per month out to communities without using the ACO.
I'm sorry, without using.
Without using the ACO.
Right, so it's replacing the ACO payments.
Sort of, yeah.
So the mechanism already exists, so they don't have to create a new one.
No, but the money didn't exist. The money went away. They got used to
That I know.
paying it. We never had these payments until One Care got created.
There used to be a primary care case management years ago, and then it got folded into blueprint payments.
Okay,
And then the ACO code came along, and this was a reaction where the Senate heard, they heard from the primary care and said, we want to do money for primary care. We
right.
know we can't use the ACO. Let's try to reconstitute this hole.
And it's one time, which means every,
It was done one time because in the contract, they couldn't come up with a way to make it base.
yeah.
So that's why,
So the fight will continue to happen.
they just made the contract that they use some one time and some base to create one time.
Okay.
Just
We'll see.
Thank you. So that's the total of the primary per member per month?
Correct.
Okay. And some of that's one-time general fund and some of it is, well, global community or federal or something.
And then on line 21, the global commitment funding for the post-permanency adoption services at Department of Children and Families. And the match pieces of that are on line 32 and 33. So you have the general fund and the federal fund appropriated for that. Needed to bring a ruler with me. The legal aid helpline, as we talked about, so that was a matchable item. So this is the federal funds and the global commitment funds coming out on lines 23 and 24. Line 22, we talked about that's the general fund coming out. On line 27, this is the federal fund change for the Meals on Wheels reduction. This is a good one. On line 29, there was a $74 incorrect entry, so we fixed that. There's no actual change to the program. This was just somebody's paying attention.
Yeah.
But this was on line, the nurturing, federal funds for the nurturing parent, line 29. We had that. We had over appropriated federal funds by $74.
So question, so by reducing the Meals on Wheels and transferring that to the food bank, we lose federal funding match
Correct.
in the amount of,
Yep. 173.
$173,000, so quite a cost to do it. Thank you.
Well, and
What line is?
Amy raised a great point. Oh, no, that was the. Yeah.
27.
Anyway, never mind. We can talk about that later.
Right, so we're losing 173,000 in federal funds by this decision.
Right.
I'm sorry, I just missed that. So by shifting out what we.
Well,
what
by
we did-
reducing Meals on Wheels, right, we're losing 173,000 in Meals on Wheels income from the feds.
I see that, okay.
And I see all your faces. I get it. I'm in there. I got the same face. Okay.
I'm trying to figure out the nexus between 25 on this other big one time and these down here. Am I missing something? Because we had these, when we'd had that discussion, line 25 on the summary of one-time general fund, where we had the discussion about reduction in meals and skills. Now, down on page we're looking at now, down on lines 26 and 27, what's the nexus? What's the nexus between these numbers and one back on the other page?
Meals on Wheels.
The first page is only the general fund.
Right.
That's the general
This
fund.
shows, so this one shows all of the appropriate one-time appropriations, whether it's general fund,
Or
federal
federal.
funds, or global commitment.
Does that same thing apply, I'm sorry, to the legal aid stuff, or is that?
Yes. So if you look at line 22 and 23, we put in 56,000 of general fund and got 44,000 of federal funds to fund the health line. So the 44 goes away. No, that's just totaling it. That's totaling the two,
Check.
where it gets confusing.
Oh,
Really?
The legal aid help line,
Okay.
right, the legal aid help line was 100,000.
yeah,
It was split 56 and 44.
thank you.
Yeah, now that I'm marking this up, we're getting a new spreadsheet. I know, it's what happens.
Okay, I can do it.
I believe in you guys.
Transfer by.
Can't see the
Yeah, once
doors
you
to the
transfer out,
trees.
it takes the old.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Look it up.
One, for what it's worth, the Meals on Wheels reduction was proposed as part of the primary care switch, which is a federal matchable thing. So while it means less federal funding for Meals on Wheels, it means that you can draw down federal funds in other places.
They did match it.
They did match it.
It's in there.
It's in a different place.
Was that their goal? Was that what they,
Primary.
was that why they were moving things around there to use it someplace else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the question you need to ask is what were they? up
Oh,
to?
yeah. Well, it's all, it's all part
Primary
of this primary care thing for 2 point whatever. million.
But if those people are fed, they may not need as much primary care.
Not an expert.
To get this done.
Okay, where were we? $74, we covered that one, that's good. Primary care case management,
Almost had no match. That's the problem.
we talked about that, yeah. The post-permanency adoption, we talked about the additional federal funds there.
Emily, just 1 sec back on the local food shelves. If we had given the money to the food bank, would it have been matchable?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Just want to be sure that we're comparing apples and apples here.
We have an awful lot of food programs. Someday I think we should have a real inventory, of exactly what we've got, how it all comes
After
together.
we get the workforce one. Yeah.
We may have one if you wanted to see it someday.
The fast fact on it.
We don't have a fast fact on it yet, but we have
Pretty
a
good, fast fact on.
summary of food programs.
Pretty neat places.
In your local county.
Yeah.
That's all needed.
Okay, we'll jump down to the next change in non-general funds, which is another good one on line 47. So the transportation central garage, there was a $33 update for that number. We're paying attention.
And the other thing that was new, we already talked about the disaster relief to the AOT, but is a non-emergency medical transports. We did not have in our budget.
And what is that?
That's,
That's something the Senate put in last year.
we did some in budget adjustment too. This is,
It's transportation
the,
from and to
Oh,
appointments.
if they don't get paid for non-emergency medical transports.
So ambulance services, you mean, or
Yeah.
rescue squad,
Yeah.
things like that?
Yeah.
Could be that, or it could be something different. Different transport mechanism. I just remember that from last year.
Don't think those are for prisons. They're not even, that's not part of that.
No, it's not
It's just the
totally
general, it's just the
unrelated.
general
It's,
community.
it's they go if, yeah. Okay, and then this has the 3 million
Yeah, from the pilot special.
fund. Which was just, there's a lot of extra money in there, so let's give some money to AOT because 3 people on the committee are from the transportation committee. Yes.
Correct. This is the construct.
3 people are on transportation and appropriations.
Yeah.
We have 30 people, it makes things more challenging than
I
we have
think,
100.
I think it's appropriate though. It's going back to the towns for their roads and the roads
Yeah.
are terrible.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yes, they.
So on to the next page is the next other fund change, line 55. This is the total amount for Meals on Wheels. So this is the global commitment funding coming out.
Oh, line 56?
Oh, yeah, 56. You have a different sheet now with
Now
a
that we have a pilot
row.
sheet, everything's.
And I'm very frequently, can
Yep.
you tell me about the CVOEO day shelter?
Yeah, the day shelter they cut in half. We didn't ask them about that.
Well, I mean, I've talked to people about it.
I know, we just didn't ask, yes, I knew you to about it.
Yeah. It was, as I understand it, part of the, search for primary care. Money.
What was the emergency on primary care? Isn't there other resources for primary care money that?
Well, there are different opinions about that. Some say DIVA could shoulder
Yeah,
that
Right.
within its budget and.
but
So we're
this was,
checking
this
into
was their couch surfing or couch checking?
Well, cushion.
Cushion
Yes.
checking?
Yeah.
No, it just,
don't-
I mean, I mean, I've heard about that in the ether and it's just like, but that's someplace else.
Right. Yes. So,
It's stressing me out.
I'm imagining we're gonna vote for a committee conference. Okay,
On line 71, I guess we go 76 and 80. These are the three appropriations that Senator Perchlik spoke about from the higher ed trust fund.
right, and the McClelland Hall, I think, was requested by the state colleges in their budget for the capital bill. Was it the capital bill or was it the request to us?
I think it was a capital bill.
Yeah,
We did.
well, yeah, they probably told us about it and we said that would be capital bill.
Is this supposed to be a quid pro quo where,
Yeah.
where the UVM gets $12 million or $15 million and
Mhm.
VSC gets 600,000?
Yeah,
Great. Typo on 78 there for the land use review board.
that's, yeah, you're right. It's not safety though. Sure, the favorite stuff.
And can I ask about 81? I've seen it a couple places. Can we, what is 933? Is that the tax bill?
That's the yield bill.
No.
Yeah.
The yield bill.
It's 949.
Is that miscellaneous tax? So this again is, it was 104.9. I think this is supposed to be in the yield bill, not in the. This is, it's the wrong bill number
Right,
that's being mentioned here. It should be in 938,
949.
whatever it is. I'll stop with the bill. 104.9 million that we transferred to the education fund for property tax relief. Renters were not included in that property tax relief, but they will be affected by what's happening. So the Senate said, let's take 4 million of that 104.9 and offer it for renter property tax relief, renter tax relief on a one-time basis. So it shows up in two spots, 100.9 going to buy down property taxes and 4 million going to the renter credit.
And is that a
So
constant
it's the same
number?
money.
Is that a constant number or is
It's
that
one
based
time.
on all of the?
It's been the number it's always been.
Well, it's the excess. It's the surplus from last year plus the.
No, I know, but the credit itself, is it utilized to that level every year?
It's they have changed the rate for 1 year so that renters will get a extra benefit in 1 year.
Have you changed it so they don't have to apply for it, or is that?
No, I
just-
don't know that. I don't know how it works.
Are they gonna know it's gonna be there?
Yeah.
Are they gonna be able to tap into that credit
The
the way
application
that
of it.
people who have more?
Right. I think there was discussion about that in Senate Finance, but I watched the testimony, but I don't remember.
My guess is they just changed the rate and the people that already applied for it will continue to apply for it and they'll just get a
Get
bigger
more.
benefit.
But
Right, but this says it's
Mike
coming,
Nigro can look into that because this is,
this says it's coming from the general fund, which is,
right, that's right.
so they're saying that the surplus. Again, I think you just said this 3 times, so, but to get this straight, so we said 104 million over there, they're sending 100 million so that they can pay
Right.
this 4 million.
Right. Right. So it's the same pot of money and there's no new money. It's just divided up a little differently than originally intended.
And it's a one-time, whereas we're planning on that $52 million a year being a 2-year.
Well, we
They make
were, but the
adjustment.
Senate did the whole thing, is their bill is 1 year, and
They're taking 100 million.
doing it all next year.
I'm sorry, okay,
Yeah.
that's something to talk about.
So there'll be a committee of conference for the yield bill,
So they're following what the governor's recommending.
right? With the slight change of earmarking 4 million for tax.
Did they talk about the downside of that over, well, we don't know.
They looked at, when I heard it, and you all can listen, and we heard it on the floor yesterday, when I watched them pass this bill out yesterday in the Senate, they wanted to have more property tax relief now and not divide it up. So it was going to be 3.8% with this renter credit, an increase in property taxes versus our about 7%. And that was important to them to have it at a lower rate. And so they would buy it down. The
But
whole
did
thing
they
is-
consider, I didn't listen to it obviously, but did they consider the fact that so next year's property taxes are still going to be roughly 50, an increase is going to roughly 50% of a
Right,
anticipated or more of an anticipated, we're not going to have a planned surplus to
That's
cover even that. So,
Right.
so this Senate/administration proposal is going to double the increase next year when we won't
Yes.
have any funds to
That's
take
right.
care of it. So
That's
they're going to, if this goes through, the governor and the Senate and us, if we vote for it, will be raising
Right.
property taxes
the following.
next year
Yes,
for
Well-
for the benefit of this year and to the penalty of next year.
that's right. There will be a cliff of $105 million.
But my question is, are the renters
you
paying,
said.
are the renters paying any property tax?
They pay increased rent
Yeah.
because the landlords
Yeah.
increase their,
They take it in the net.
they
don't-
take it, they get it.
Most landlords aren't automatically increasing.
Oh.
So, yeah.
If your property taxes go up by $10,000 on your,
Think they go
on your-
back down?
No,
it's like gas tax, right? All the fuel dealers up the cost of gas before they even had the increased cost of gas.
rent is not a commodity like we.
Just checking, I was just
You were
checking to
hoping
make
there'd
sure
be
there
a-
wasn't another giveaway for.
Nope,
The increase is applied equally on the homestead. On the property tax, it's applied equally between homestead and non-homestead. So the 3.8%, 3.8% is the homestead increase.
Right.
But when the Ways and Means Committee plays around with the yield bill, they have a choice of applying everything to one side or the other, or splitting it in the middle. And this year they decided to split it across. So somebody who owns an apartment building will indeed have increased property taxes next year. And whether they pass it along or not is an issue. And so that's why the Senate said, well, we want to give a little extra to renters.
it's not like fully funding all the renter issues by any stretch, so
No,
it's just,
No.
it's sort of a, yeah.
Just check.
I knew you'd have a question. All right, are we done with that sheet?
Yeah,
Okay, what about all these other lovely sheets that?
it is up to you. So we've got Grady here also, if you want to look at any language specifically.
That's it.
Up to you if you want to specifically go through them. Reversion spreadsheet quickly.
Yeah,
That one's pretty straightforward. I spoke about it earlier. But the line 4 and in line 16, these were the two reversions that were flagged by finance as we couldn't take those, because they're current year appropriations, we couldn't revert them. We should just reduce the appropriations. So you'll see in the C section, those two appropriations are reduced accordingly. Sorry, the reversions.
correctional service.
Correctional services.
Money is still there, just that we did it the wrong way.
Yeah, and it, means it has to flow through what's on the bottom line and what gets carried forward, and then it changes the reserve calculation.
Right.
$900,000 change base. You gotta do 17.
Okay. And then the only other thing that was different was they took less out of the emissions repair program than we did.
Correct.
Okay, questions on that one? Let's see what else we have.
The reserves, those are the same, so I don't.
No, that's fine. Contingent, we've kind of talked about.
This is just a quick summary of contingent appropriations. And I should say, April ends today. Today's the 30th. We'll know later in the month of May how April performed.
Right.
At this point, we can't say either direction it is.
Right,
There will be any money to fund anything on the.
right. But it's nice to think about. Okay, and then we have transfers.
The only changes on these, and these were on some of the other sheets, on the transfer sheet,
Are we off the reversion?
off the
page?
reversion sheet.
Thank you.
Off to transfers.
Yeah.
To from the general. So we had the numbers didn't print on this, but under the one-time transfers, the education fund, we spoke about that, reduction by $4 million. And then the couple lines down, the change in the tech mod, or the computer communications
fund.
IT, thank you, that's an easier way.
Put $1 million in, they took it out.
Yeah.
Use it.
And then the disaster mitigation fund for the Northeast Kingdom, that was moved to an appropriation.
So that went to AOT.
Yep. And then the last change, all the way on the bottom, that PACE reserve fund,
Yes.
60,000 to the general.
Okay. Those look like all the spreadsheets.
That's all the spreadsheets.
Thank you
Well,
very much.
any questions, let me know.
Yeah, I think at some point, I don't know if there's a way that somebody could do a little spreadsheet of where we cut to get the primary care.
I have it,
Yeah, I'd like
Got it.
Oh,
I have it.
could we have that?
Yeah.
We don't have a copy of it, so we would like a copy of that, and then we'll have you talk.
And also I think wasn't there a spreadsheet of the movement of the meals and the food?
That was all part of the primary care too.
Yeah, we have another one for that.
Okay.
Meals on Wheels.
Those,
What's confusing is Meals on Wheels was used for primary care,
And
and the other stuff was used for the local food shelves, even though they're both food things. Anyway. At the end of the day, it all went back into the bucket, then it came back out.
okay.
Do we know, remember we had that discussion about the opioid fund and the substance fund? Is that the same as when we had it, or has that changed?
That's all I changed. too.
Although it hasn't come out of the Senate, right? Did the committee pass it out to Senate?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I think I know the answer to this, but we talked a little bit earlier today about the cannabis fund. We talked in the past about, so I see here on the last transfers and direct applications chart that you had up, there's sports wagering with the anticipated revenue from sports wagering and liquor control. We don't put lottery proceeds on here because it's going directly to the education fund, I think. And then we have maybe this is a question if somebody can just shoot me an email of what the other. These are businesses of the state of Vermont and happen to be vices. I'd like to know how much we're spending on vices and how much we're getting back in return. And I know that the cannabis fund is being split several different ways. It's just not reflected because it's not a general, but we talked about a general fund transfer. Or we talked about using the cannabis fund, perhaps from the general fund to go pay back the college fund.
right, but that's not in the budget, is it? It wouldn't be year one, it would be after next year?
The payback is effective July 1 of 2028, right? 27.
27 would be after 28.
By 28, yeah. So it doesn't impact the general fund in this budget context. That can redirect of the cannabis receipts. And just to clarify one thing, the cannabis the cannabis excise tax goes directly to the general fund. 30% of that goes to the substance misuse fund. The rest of it just goes into the general fund. There's no specific cannabis fund per se. Unlike sports wagering, liquor control, those ones go into their own fund and then they go to the general fund at the end of the year. Cannabis just goes straight to the general fund.
Right, we can see what the receipts are though, the non-encumbered receipts.
Oh, yeah, there's a cannabis, yeah, we can do a reconciliation of what happened with the cannabis fund.
Because I think that's a question, when I hear about the way that we're, being proposed to use cannabis funds to pay back I mean, again, we all get caught up in, well, there's this money here. I mean, again, I have a career-long battle over property transfer taxes and what they were supposed to be used for statutorily versus, where they can be appropriated notwithstanding. I'd just like to get an idea of how much money are we spending on, how much of money is Vermonters spending on cannabis, lottery tickets, and alcohol, and sports wagering, and what do we see as a return, and where does it go? Because I think there's a fast fact of just saying, just because we sell this much, we only get this much back, but only this much goes to this. It gets confusing to understand the parts of where the money is supposed to go. I mean, anything that, and I mean, in theory, everything should go into the general fund. That's not how we do special funds. That's not how we use it. We always have the catch-all of notwithstanding, which is not what they're saying about paying back the scholarship funds. They're just, I mean, they are in essence separating, correct me if I'm wrong, they're taking the money that's going into the general fund and they're saying that that's going to be diverted directly to, which is different than saying it's going into the general fund and then we pay out from the general fund. I mean, there's a real stick in my back about, you can't say we're taking cannabis money that's intended for the general fund and using it for a different purpose cleanly. You just, I mean, we can't.
Because the money goes to the general fund and then it has to be reallocated from the general fund to the higher ed trust fund. So yeah, it's general fund money.
People used to say, I'm not putting the property transfer tax into housing and conservation, but we're using that money to use it for other things that are helping the same population. I'm like, no, that's not true. You're using general, I mean, it's just this, it's a game that we play that I think I would like a clarity just from what we have, so that when somebody says we're going to use cannabis money for this purpose, we can either correct them semantically or have an argument about whether you should put it down in language and just say, this is what we statutorily want these things to do. The battles over that money, whether it's LEOB, whether it's for this process, whether it's for anything else, it goes into the ether and people have these arguments thinking that we should be putting.
Well, they think money is associated with it. I say, I'm going to move us on because we have to hear from Grady too, and you have a question and we have to vote this out before we go have lunch.
I have a question, I have a comment.
Okay.
The stick in my back is how much do we spend, because of mental health issues in the hospital and everything that goes off the side that we're not paying with this money, but we're still incurring as costs to our society and to us indirectly.
It's all part of the biggest conversation. Why are we in the business of selling advice, and we do it because on the shallowest level possible, we have income.
Okay, let's get Grady up here.
Great. In the language, you'll see the statutory change.
Right, there's some stuff.
That tax. According.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. So, Trevor, we'll be doing a straw poll. We need to actually take a roll call and the conference. We could just do a thumbs up.
I can get that.
Okay, so we have a record of action.
But you're saying we're
Stick out here unless you want to tell anything.
yes.
It's all just money. Everybody.
Yeah. Okay, Grady, take it away.
Thank you. Grady Nixon, Joint Fiscal. So unfortunately, I don't have the sort of Christmas tree side-by-side document ready yet. So a lot of the language removals and those sorts of things that you would typically see, representing what the House had, you won't see what the Senate removed wholesale. Hopefully, by the end of the week, that document will be ready. This will just show you Senate additions and changes. And the green is a little hard to see, but The first instance you'll see here in section A101, this was from the technical letter, just adding in for capital appropriations not funded with bond proceeds. This is just language that we had to add because the capital bill was incorporated into the budget. The committee may recall that the capital bill was added on third reading in the House, so we just didn't have time to add that language. The same in section A102.
Can you give us a page number? I apologize.
Yeah.
Could
Just
you?
document up.
Oh, yes, sorry. So this is just the Senate proposal of amendment. It's the unofficial on the bill page for 1851.
So I'm using the addendum to the Senate calendar from April 22nd. That's what we all have. But you use that and we'll just figure it out.
I also was the Senate unofficial Senate proposal of amendment on our committee page under Grady's name.
Okay, we don't. I don't know that we
Sorry,
have
I wonder where.
copies of that, but.
Need a Grady's name.
Okay, so if you tell us the section, we can figure it out from where we are.
Great.
So that's it. The second green is,
The same language relating to just adding in capital appropriations. So that's on line 1 of page 2.
which is A what?
A102.
Okay. It's not page 2 in this thing, so.
Oh,
If you
apologies.
tell us the section, then we'll figure out the page.
On also in A102, again, this is further language added to this explanatory section, just highlighting that capital appropriations are addressed in the budget. And then in section A103, this is the final piece of language relating to the technical language needed to just address the fact that the cash fund appropriations are in the budget. So now in B1100, I can just go through this quickly. This is the language that corresponds to what the committee went through with the one-time sheets that Emily presented on.
So this is on page 55 if we're doing the addendum.
So you'll see the change in the appropriation for provider stabilization grants to VIVA. And then the global commitment appropriation for the per member per month primary care case management payments. C1, so the Senate, the House version of the bill, the committee may recall, called out specific allocations of that 21.18 million appropriation for the homelessness response continuum, shelter development, et cetera. The Senate, given the timing of their work on H938, wanted to ensure that the $21 million box was addressed, but the specific allocations weren't called out in the event that they chose to shift those around in their version of H938.
Do we know when they're voting that out? I don't know, it's not here now, but now that I have that question.
I believe Health and Welfare was taking testimony on it this morning, but I'm not sure when they're.
Okay, thanks.
And so this doesn't change the amount, this just removes those specifically called out allocations.
Right.
This is language, the House also had this appropriation for a grant to end homelessness Vermont. This just added in clarifying language about the intent of that. This is part of the food movement of food funding. So this is the 697,000 for direct aid to community partner food shelves. And then you'll see here in sub 8, the global commitment for the post-permanency adoption services. Following that, you'll see the general fund and federal fund for Meals on Wheels. So these numbers obviously changed given the food support construct that the Senate had. And then here you'll see the general fund and federal fund for the global commitment for the primary care per month, per member per month payments. And the general fund and federal fund split for the global commitment for the post-permanency adoption services. In sub E, this is the dollar change for VOREC.
Have we left it at 500?
Yes.
Okay.
In sub F, DHCD, this is the 100,000 for the first generation home buyer program and 25,000 for the South Hero Service Committee. In sub G, this is just the movement of that 50,000 for the Vermont 250th to the Department of Economic Development. So that's not a dollar change, just a change in where it's being appropriated to.
Right. Then the 2 million. Yeah.
2 million for the Rural Industry Development Program. 100,000 for a grant to the Vermont Law School for the Vermont Small Business Law Center. 150,000 to the Vermont Small Business Development Center. And then here you'll see the change. So in the House construct, this aid for Northeast Kingdom towns impacted by July 2025 flooding, ineligible for FEMA. This was originally in the House construct, a transfer from the general fund to the Community Disaster Resilience Fund. The technical letter recommended just shifting this to a direct general fund appropriation to the Agency of Transportation. So the dollar amount did not change here. This just added in the actual wording for how this funding would go, how the awards ought to be distributed, and then made it a direct general fund appropriation rather than a transfer from the general fund to the Community Disaster and Resilience Fund. Then you'll see the 300,000 for non-emergency medical transportation, and then the 3 million pilot special fund appropriation for state aid to town highway grants.
And that's not in here because that was an amendment on the floor. So that is in, is that number 4?
Yes, so that is H4.
3 million pilot. Okay.
This is on the increased municipalities from the extra sales tax.
Local option tax.
Yeah.
The excess that's about.
That's in that,
Yep.
in that fund.
In sub I, Department of Health, you'll see the 150,000 for a grant to the Vermont Language Justice Project. And again, to Rep. Bloomley's explanation of this is for the preparation of informational materials to Vermonters who speak languages other than English in the event of a public health emergency. In sub J, Department of Mental Health, you'll see the reduction to the CDOEO day shelter. And in sub K, you'll see the reduction to the global commitment to Meals on Wheels, as well as the $100,000 appropriation for a grant to support the startup costs of a new adult day program in Washington or Rutland County. And there's also language stating that funding can also be used to support the cost of an existing adult day program to expand its capacity or serve more individuals.
So if I may just clarify, just so I follow it. So if no one comes forward in Washington or Rutland County, the department can make a decision to transfer these one-time funds to someone else who's in need.
Correct. In sub L, this is the reduction to the NOFA grant for the Crop Cash Plus, and Farm Share programs. And then in sub 3 of sub L, you'll see the reduction to the Vermont Food Bank, Vermonters Feeding Vermonters program.
Those were payments that were going directly to farmers to provide food or to provide benefits at farmers markets.
Right.
For people to be able to buy local food, which is again different than the construct of giving money to food banks.
Right. Economic development for the farmers.
In sub O, AOE, this you'll see the reduction from 182,000, I believe, to 150,000 for the children and adult food care program.
Right.
And then this is just the movement of the AEDs in schools So this is not a dollar change. This is just, again, redirecting where that appropriation goes to the correct place. Sub P, this is 25,000 to support a study on the estimated amount that health insurance premiums would increase if Vermont were to enact legislation requiring health insurance coverage of biomarker testing. So this is funding for a study in a Senate bill. And then you'll see in sub Q, the 2.32 million higher education endowment trust fund appropriation for freedom and unity grants. So the House construct had this amount for this purpose, but from the general fund, not from the higher education endowment trust fund. Then in sub R, you'll see to the treasurer's office, 50,000 to support the work of the Public Employee Health Benefit Authority Study Committee.
What bill was that one again, Brady?
I would have to get back to you on that.
I know I can find it in the base or the one-time thing. I think I should have found it. It was related to a bill.
Correct.
S190.
S190. Thank you.
Oh, yes. No, that's done in version.
No.
That's okay.
Okay. So I'll start checking on some of these bills on whether we think they're actually gonna go, because I know I've heard that like the governor's gonna veto a certain thing or the committees aren't gonna actually go through with some stuff, so we'll have a little flexibility. Okay,
In sub T, this is the 600,000 higher education endowment trust fund appropriation to the Vermont State Colleges for the McClelland Hall Housing Transformation Project. In sub U, this is the S218, $200,000 general fund appropriation for the chloride contamination reduction program. In sub V, this is the $100,000 appropriation to the Land Use Review Board for Act 250 related public outreach and engagement.
did you change that? Oh, but it's going to the Land Access and Opportunity Board to do the public engagement for the LURB.
So this goes to the Land Use Review Board.
Right.
Then they will do the work in consultation with the Land Access and Opportunity Board.
Okay,
Bill has different.
which bill?
325.
325.
You're done with that.
Yeah.
They have a new
We're gonna-
version yesterday
yes.
morning.
S325, by the way, that's the Act 181. It got voted out unanimously, 11-0 out of House Environment. That might be the first unanimous bill they've had, but it was unanimous out of that. It's gonna go today to Ways and Means, and we're gonna get it tomorrow for like 45 minutes. So I would suggest, when you're not looking at the budget this afternoon, read 325, so we have, before we have our 45 minutes of reviewing it on Friday. Sorry for that side.
In sub W, this is the $25,000 appropriation for the Lake Champlain International Fishing Derby. In sub X, this is the $12 million higher education endowment trust fund appropriation for the multi-purpose center project at UVM. And then this language just specifies that any construction that is paid for with that spending authority adhere to the higher of the prevailing wage requirements in Vermont statute for capital construction, or the prevailing wage requirements as determined by the U.S. Department of Labor or related federal acts or regulations. This section.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
On the fishing thing, is that something that Fish and Wildlife usually pays for out of their budget, or do they need a separate?
It has been in the budget in recent years. It's been a cash fund appropriation as well in recent years from the cash in the cash fund
They
section.
should just put it in their budget.
It's been going on for a long time. It always has worked this way. It usually came out of capital bill and it passed through the Fish and Wildlife Department as a pass through. Right. So it's not part of the
Yeah, we do
budget.
that in every year, but it really ought to just be in their budget.
Year over year.
Who has that one? Trevor. You talked to them, talking about putting it in their budget for next year,
I will.
so we can stop having this conversation. Thank you. Okay, continue.
Section B1101, this is the addition of the contingent list.
Yeah.
The reference to 2025 acts and resolves number 27, section B 103A1B as amended by 2026, acts and resolves 74. That is,
Three times really fast.
that is the now $70.9 million, which is part of the $100.9 million for property tax buy down. So this directs after reserving and carrying forward those funds, and then fulfilling the general fund stabilization reserve statutory requirement and the new statutory requirement related to the child care contribution fund, which is 32 VSA 308F. Then the Department of Finance and Management shall calculate the maximum number of contingent transactions that can be funded pursuant to subsection B. And then for Emily's spreadsheet, 4.7 million to the Technology Modernization Special Fund, which is half of what is being transferred out of it in D101. And then 1 million transferred to the Farm and Forestry Operation and Security Special Fund, that Chair Perchlik highlighted earlier. Then 5 million transferred to the Human Services Caseload Reserve, and 30 million reserved in the general fund for future appropriation or transfer for addressing federal funding shortfalls, Vermont Medicaid and other human services needs, property tax relief, housing initiatives, or any other uses.
Same language.
Exactly.
But we still, in A, we're still carrying forward the 30 million.
Yes.
And we're the 50 million, what's left of the 50 million is still where it is.
Yes, so this doesn't touch on those, but
So those remain in place.
correct.
And then this would be if a miracle occurred and we had more money, we could do up to 30 million.
Correct. So
That same thing.
that 30 million in Act 27 remains reserved.
Yeah.
And then the 50 million is an appropriation, so that carries forward, and that language was added into the Budget Adjustment Act.
And this 30 million language is the same language as the second 30 million that we had last year
That is unreserved.
that we're now using for the ed fund. The other 30 million that we're carrying forward was strictly discussing for federal funds, not for property tax relief. So they don't have access to that 30 million for the 28. Okay.
But we still have 30?
Yeah, that related to federal funds shortfalls.
Plus the 50.
Plus the 50 that the E-board has.
But it's federal,
But it's not.
isn't it federal funds plus now? Doesn't it have this language where,
What did they change in the BAA?
In the Act 27, there was one $30 million reserve with this language attached to it, general use, one $30 million reserve specifically for federal funding cuts, and then $50 million appropriated for the emergency board to address any potential funding shortfalls. And the committee will recall back in the fall, about 6.5 million of that was used. In the budget adjustment, the 30 million that was for broad uses was unreserved. And the other 30 million that is just for federal funding cuts has not been touched. That remains reserved.
And where did we put the potential help for BSHA? Because they've still been having it.
That would probably come out of the 50 million if we had to, or the 50 or the 30. That would be potentially eligible in those areas without a specific set aside, yeah.
The language in the budget adjustment specifically called out that 50 million appropriation for the Section 8 potential. In the C section of the Senate bill, there's some language amending that language. Just technical corrections, make sure that the timeline works given the lack of HUD notice. The housing authorities requested just an amendment to make sure that the timeline would actually be workable for them.
Okay, thank you.
In section B 1103, this is the cash fund appropriations. So the Senate capital bill includes 1 million for statewide 3-acre parcel stormwater compliance. And then
That's new.
correct. And then increase this appropriation to BGS for the AHS door control upgrades at correctional facilities from 700,000 to 2.7 million.
Oh.
Will be very well controlled.
Really worried about
And then in K, this is 500,000 for sprinkler system upgrades at the Newport Northern State Correctional Facility.
They're supposed to be doing Air conditioning?
Yeah, they cut that down. I think. Wasn't there 3 million for air, it was 3 million for Wi-Fi.
Yes, they,
Now downgraded to 250,000.
exactly.
So that's where they're getting the money to do these things. But wasn't there air conditioning somewhere?
It's in the capital bill before.
Well,
Or maybe
not
it's in the
cash
capital, that cash fund?
I just have questions about this too, downgrading to 250K. I just don't know, like, what does that buy? It was originally estimated at 2.5 million or something. I can't remember what the original number was.
Which,
For the Wi-Fi.
I thought it was 3 million.
It was 3.
It was 3 million.
Uh-huh. And
I'll check it.
I,
Trevor's on it. A lot of these are yours in here, Trevor. Trevor's got a few things to deal with in this budget. Okay, let's continue. We have to vote this, we have to vote on a committee conference, and we should try to hear as much as we can, so great.
Section C102, so this is the change to reflecting the Senate version of miscellaneous tax. This is just the update to that fiscal year end balance being brought into FY27 for property tax relief.
Okay. C103.
I would note here, this is in C103, this is a section that the committee will better understand the changes when you see the side by side with the House language and the Senate language. The Senate did make changes to this section that were only omissions. So there was some language that would specifically apply to the Senate education transformation H955. Some language had to be removed in the Senate construct to make sure that this would not conflict with the Senate work on H955. Jumping ahead to Senate Add Section C106. So this is the amendment to the budget adjustment language relating to housing authorities and emergency assistance. So as I mentioned a moment ago, this is just striking the requirement that housing authorities notify DCF of their intent to request funds on or before April 15th. They do not have access to this information from HUD yet, to my knowledge. And obviously, April 15th has already come and gone. So this adds language specifying that that request for funds or notification of the request be within 10 business days after receiving official notice from HUD of its federal fiscal year 2026 funding amount. And then a corresponding date change for DCF to relating to the establishment of procedures, stating that that shall be not more than 20 business days after that official notice from HUD is given. Section C107, this relates to a prior year appropriation to the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. I believe the VHCB can no longer use these funds for one planned project. There's another project that they hope to use these funds for. So this adds in language related to supportive housing for Medicaid funded developmental disability services, so that they can use that prior year appropriation for a project that they have lined up.
I remember there were conversations about this after it passed out of our.
Section C108, this was in a request from the administration that was, we failed to catch this request in the House construct. This relates to the ERAP cure, so the reimbursement of prior federal funds expended through ERAP. The cash fund was utilized for this purpose. And so this is just language to ensure that that is an allowable use. Section C109, the House and Senate in the budget adjustment added in an appropriation to the Agency of Administration to ensure that ADEC was fully funded for the Vermont State Teachers Retirement System. The Treasurer's Office flagged a concern that a similar issue might occur for the Vermont State Employees Retirement System. So in the budget adjustment, there or Act 27 as adjusted by Act 74. There is a total of 6.8 million for this, and this allows for that $3 million one-time appropriation to be used for either system to ensure that the ADEC is fully funded. Section C110, this is one of the sections relating to the reversions that Emily spoke about earlier. So rather than reverting this Act 73 school district redistricting task force appropriation, because it's a current year appropriation, this is just reducing it.
To what they actually needed. That's how we captured the 80,000. Yeah.
Correct, which is slightly reduced, so the number was slightly different.
Yeah. Okay.
And then this is the second section relating to reduction of appropriations rather than reversion. So this is that 650,000.
Yeah. Okay.
And then because of that, the human services total is updated as well. Section C113.
Money to the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission.
Sorry, so section C113 amends this prior year appropriation to allow for funds to be used for the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission. This was a request to allow for a grant to the Capital Region Communication System, which is Central Vermont Montpelier-Barry, to develop their communication system.
Where is this money coming from? Is this from the emergency
It better
management?
not be.
Is that from that $11 million?
Yes.
For public safety for dispatch. Okay, this one's yours, Marty.
So I take it they had excess funding, or was this just not?
The emergency
was this
management
intended?
bill had a way to use all that money.
Right,
didn't they?
well, it used a bunch of it, and this is the balance that it says shall be continued to be reserved until you
Ah,
come back to the.
Exactly.
And ask for it to be changed.
So there's a separate bill dealing with these funds, and then
right.
this is what remained after those changes.
Did the Senate take any testimony on this? Department of Public Safety,
I would have to get back to you on that. I'm not sure.
I will be checking as well, right?
Okay, that's
I
a big
was
question. mark.
looking for this in the E section and it never showed up in E section.
It's in the C section. And I wonder where that emergency management bill is.
Well, it hasn't been acted on yet. I mean, it's still in GovOps.
It's still in GovOps,
In
Senate
Senate.
GovOps. What was that number? Age 6?
935.
It was 935. Okay. All right. Continue, please.
D101, the transfer section. So you'll see in sub D here, this is the reduction of the transfer to the education fund. As Emily and Chair Shia articulated, the total number here, that 104.9, the 4 million is now being used for the renter credit. So this number was changed to 100.9.
Oh, yeah. So that's on page 72, note letter D, if you're reading the bill. Okay.
And then in sub 9 here, you'll see this was from the technical letter, an update to the mechanism for the transfer from the Technology Modernization Special Fund. It was flagged that the amount of interest in that fund is known. So the report back language on the total amount transfer was not necessary. The amount could just be explicitly called out.
Okay.
Where is that?
That's on page 73, 9A.
Section.
Okay.
In the reversion section, so those two reversions that are now in the C section as appropriation reductions don't show up in this section any longer. And then this is where you'll see the reversion of the Department of Environmental Conservation Emissions Repair Program reduced by half. Section D 104, this was added by the Senate. This is germaneness intent language. This just explicitly states that for education transformation funding, it is the intent of the General Assembly that any specific appropriations, legislative language, and applicable adjustments be incorporated in a specific bill or added to this act if necessary. In E100, the position section, you'll see some positions. The Senate, of course, did not create all the positions that the House did, and it created some different ones. So you'll see just the additions here to the Office of the State Treasurer, one policy and research manager position, and to the Office of the Secretary of State, one executive officer, and then a permanent exempt staff attorney at the Office of the Secretary of State.
Okay, so this doesn't show that taking out the ethics commission or the mediator, any of that stuff?
Correct. Yeah, this document as it currently exists only reflects Senate additions. It doesn't show Senate.
Right. Were those the only two positions they took out of ours? Do you recall?
I would have to defer to Amy on that.
Okay. Amy can let us know sometime. Okay.
Scrolling down to section E108. This is language that the Senate added relating to a compensation study report on exempt employee compensation. So it directs the Department of Human Resources to review and analyze exempt position titles set forth in statute and exempt position titles that are not set forth in statute, how the annual rate of adjustment is determined and applied, and the salary advancement structure for exempt employees compared to that for classified employees.
I did hear on the floor, there was an amendment that didn't pass, but that salaries for exempt employees were raising at a much higher rate than those, if I remember correctly, than those that are classified.
I can't speak to that specific analysis, but that.
I don't know, but the analysis, I think that was what was said on the floor.
Yeah.
I may have misheard it, but I think that's what was said.
That was what was said.
Yeah, well, that seems to be possibly where we are now, but we'll find out more.
Section E111.1, this is one of two sections relating to that change to the cannabis excise tax. So this amends statute to direct now 50% rather than 70% of the excise tax to the general fund. And then in section E11.2, this directs now 20% of the cannabis excise tax revenue to the Higher Education Endowment Trust Fund. And again, these sections are effective in fiscal year 2028. They do not impact the budget this year.
And that doesn't say until the 12 million is paid back. It just has it as forever.
Correct.
At this point. Okay. And then I guess they assumed that 20% this year would be about $4 million, between $3 and $4 million.
Correct. I believe the estimate is over roughly 3 years.
Okay.
Section E131.1, this is repealing the state case reserve fund from statute. So the Senate bill pulled what remained in that fund, 61,000, and then this repeals the fund.
Right, which fund is that?
E131.1.
Oh, PACE, got it. Okay, it's so little up there, I was seeing retirement system.
And then section E133, this relates to number changes relating to cascading from decisions for VPIC. So again, these numbers typically change at each stage of the bill.
Yeah.
The same for section E134. And then this is where you'll see intent language relating to the one-time increase for the renter rebate in fiscal year 2027. So the actual dollar amount you'll see in the base section, B138, it increased from 11.5 million to 15.5 million. This is language just explaining that that $4 million increase is intended to be a one-time increase. So sometimes it makes more sense to just increase the base and then make it explicit that that's not intended to be an ongoing increase. And that was what the Senate did here. Section E209.1. Emily spoke to this earlier. This is just language adding in firearms to this new fund for equipment replacement. Section E220, this language speaks to the $350,000 transfer to the Domestic and Sexual Violence Special Fund. This states that the Center for Crime Victim Services shall distribute $250,000 of that appropriation as grants to member organizations of the Vermont Network. Section E233.1. This is just a statutory cleanup because the state case reserve fund is being repealed. This just removes a statutory reference to that fund. In section E301, there was a reference to the Medicaid reimbursement special fund, which is being repealed and replaced with the school-based Medicaid reimbursement special fund. And in the technical letter, it was flagged, this relates to fiscal year 2027 closeout. Because the new fund will have been established at that time, this language has been updated to reference the new fund rather than the old fund.
Okay. Great.
Section E306.3. This is language directing the Department of Vermont Health Access to distribute the per member per month primary care case management payments. Section E311.1. This is language directing the Department of Health to consider allocating $1 million in FY27 to support the implementation of a statewide population-based youth behavioral prevention program, which would be, I believe, consider allocating 1 million of substance misuse prevention special fund. And so this language itself is not an appropriation. It just directs the department to consider allocating 1 million of that appropriation.
Oh, this is with having a platform. This is the widget.
It's the Saluna. Name of the app.
Is this something that was in S something or other? Is this in a bill?
I don't believe so.
It's not. It just kind of appeared. I think that there were some reps from the company that were here and may have offered had some conversations with members of that committee, the Senate committee.
Okay.
So at any rate.
So is that a real expenditure?
Well.
Or they be
it says
taking
shall
it from the
consider.
fund?
I've rarely ever seen that
I
language.
don't think I've ever seen shall
Shall
consider.
consider.
I mean, I could understand language shall consider and propose, but not shall.
Okay, I consider now. I'm going to the next thing.
But it's
Okay.
not coming from general fund, it's coming from,
From a,
If it were to
existing
come anywhere
allocation.
from a prevention fund that is already oversubscribed.
oh, well.
Well, I think it's taking it from money that.
The language technically doesn't take it from
Yeah, that's.
anywhere. It just directs the department to consider allocating an existing appropriation, but
Their budget.
the language itself doesn't actually move.
Do anything.
But I'm just is there a punchline to it, Grady? Is there a punchline to the language that says, okay, so we'll consider it? Here's this program, we thought about it. Do we make a recommendation? Is there a report required? Is there a?
No, so
No
this,
action
this,
other than consider.
this is an FY 27 consideration. So there wouldn't be a report back or a recommendation for their FY 28 budget. This would be, if the department looks at the appropriation, they could in theory allocate it.
Okay.
I'm getting feedback here.
So we're gonna hold them accountable at some point next year. You'll ask them, did you consider this?
Okay, continue.
This section E313 amends the Substance Misuse Prevention Fund Special Fund statute, and clarifies that the fund is established for the purpose of funding substance misuse prevention programming, including school-based prevention programming. Section E316 replaces the House E316. This is essentially simplified language relating to the Reach Up report. So the committee may recall the House construct used language that was in, I'm blanking on the act number, but the act that about 5 years ago directed the Reach Up report. This language is just a pared down version of that language intended to do the same thing. Section E316.1 is intent language stating that the General Assembly intends to, in future fiscal years, include the parent-child center network in inflationary rate increases.
Do we have to worry about that language?
Well, I don't know, I don't know the history of this. I mean, it isolates one set of providers, whereas many other providers who are also in statute don't get inflationary increases. And I don't know the background to this, so can find out, but.
Is it directive though?
This just expresses intent language.
Yeah.
So this would be a consideration for a future legislature.
I'm putting.
Years, I guess. This was part of one of the requests in our budget.
Section E316.2, this relates to a Medicaid and SNAP needs assessment. So this directs DCF and DEVA to report to relevant standing committees on or before December 15th on a needs assessment relating to HR1 impacts to SNAP and Medicaid work requirements. And then clarifies that the department shall examine number of individuals and number of impacted households who have become ineligible for benefits due to federal work requirement changes, summary of benefit loss, information on individuals who later regained eligibility, an analysis of the reasons individuals are determined ineligible, and then information on outreach and other efforts undertaken by the departments to support those impacted households. And then in sub C, this is just reporting requirement, clarifying the departments shall continue to report on substantively similar information in calendar years 2027 and 2028. So there's the December 15th, 2026 report, and then quarterly updates from the departments with substantively similar information. In section E316.3, this is it's similar to the education transformation germaneness language. This is language in the Senate bill. The base funding for the homelessness response continuum and related investments was not explicitly called out in the House version. All of the money was appropriated, but it was not specifically addressed. So this language just calls out the 61.45 million that is appropriated across B316, B321, and B325.
Which section is that?
No, oh.
E316.3.
Oh, it's not in here. That must have been an addition. It's not in the addendum. Interesting.
It's in Grady's.
I know it's in Brady's thing, but it wasn't, so was that an amendment on the
Yes.
floor?
Yes.
Okay. 316.3 floor amendment. And this is the homelessness, this is about H 938.
Correct.
Okay.
Section E 317, this is language updating the supervised visitation program allocation. So this, the total amount does not change here. It just now states that the total 367,500 go to the 6 existing community-based supervised visitation sites. Section E 329, again, this is an update to a report that was also in the House construct relating to the DAs and SSAs. So the language in the House construct was just adapted from that Oliver Wyman Green Mountain Care Board report language. This, again, because the language is not intended to actually direct the department to begin the outreach work, the language was updated and simplified just to clarify the legislative intent here of directing them to begin looking into this. Section E 329.1, in the House construct, this directed Dale to present as separate line items the choices for care program, home-based and community-based services, and skilled nursing facility services. The term line items we use frequently, but it's not a technical term, so this just updating it to say appropriations.
Great, thank you.
Section E 332, this is legislative intent relating to the funding of Higher Ability Vermont. So it states that the funding for that program is through the opioid abatement special fund in FY27, but the intent is to fund it using general fund monies in the future. Section E 338.1, this is language clarifying that $85,000 in section B 338 be for a grant to Jenna's Promise for reentry services. I believe Jenna's Promise, this organization has gotten this grant for multiple years in the past. This is not an addition of new funds. This is just an explicit directive that $85,000 be for that purpose.
Yes.
So can I go back one, Brady, that's that one about right there, so this is a one-time payment to Higher Ability through the special funds. And it's just creating intent language. It's not creating an actual line. It's not baking this in, right? It's just the intent to bake it in.
Correct. So in fiscal year 2027, this is funded through the opioid abatement special fund, and then it expresses legislative intent to fund it through general fund monies in the future.
Right, but it's not guaranteed, it's not handcuffing the next legislature that's doing that.
No, you can't do that.
Right, I'm just been making clear, that strikes me as like shall consider language. It's just.
Yes, it's intent.
Thank you.
Section E 514.1, again, this relates to those numbers that have to shift around pending VPIC changes. So you'll see here, those numbers are updated and presumably they will be updated again in the Committee of Conference report. Section E 515, this was a technical letter flag that the dollar amount called out in the language was incorrect. So it was updated by about 9 million, and you'll see the corresponding number changes throughout that section. In section E 700, the amendments to the Land and Facilities Trust Fund, there were technical updates to this language clarifying that it was the agency itself, not the department. And then it stated that the agency, the treasurer could disperse up to 8% of the fund rather than the current 5%. You'll see later on in this section, the Senate amended it to say up to 8% rather than just 8%. So putting that
We distribute up to 8%. Okay.
correct. And then added in language just stating that that distribution can only be made if the fund balance does not go below the prior fiscal year's ending fund balance. So a provision preventing that distribution from dipping into principal.
Okay.
Section E702, this is the section that Emily mentioned earlier, just directing the Department of Fish and Wildlife to present as part of its FY28 budget presentation, information on the current cost and schedule of radio and firearm life cycle replacement, and then any recommendation for future funding, including the establishment of a designated special fund similar to the one at public safety that's being created in the bill. Section E711, the technical letter flag that we had this section, I believe we had it as 703. It flagged that it should be section E711. And then we can get into this at a further time when the committee reviews the positions in the Senate bill. But in this House version, this said 2 environmental engineers. It is now 2 environmental analysts. I believe that those positions, at least one of them, this section still uses 300,000 to establish 2 positions, but the positions are for different purposes now.
This is E7.
E711.
Oh, there's 11. Okay.
Presumably these are existing position titles.
Tell me, I'm sorry, I
Yes.
was multitasking again. What was this? Is this for a bill or is this the?
Yes, so one is for S218.
Okay.
And I don't recall the bill for the other one at this moment.
The other one's the flood safety?
Yeah, Flood Act.
Flood Act. Okay. And Flood Act. Okay. And the salt bill doesn't work, we can get the, because we had put 2 in for the Flood Act. And so if the salt bill doesn't pass, maybe we can have that transferred. Something to think about. Okay.
And then I assume the committee won't see these sections because they were added through amendment. These are 3 sections that relate to amendments to the pilot special fund and the creation of a new local transportation special fund, local option municipal transportation special fund. So this language directs excess pilot special fund revenue once all other pilot payments have been made to this newly established fund, 3/4 of that excess amount. And then it establishes the fund. And then adds the references to this newly created fund to the statute for state aid for town highways.
Well, we can run down this eventually.
Yes.
But it's new to us,
Right. This is our rundown that we're getting so far, but we can come back at it.
right?
I'm looking at the time, I have a must go to meeting at 12:30 and we have to do a straw poll before that, but I think we're almost done. So I think it's all gonna work out just fine. But I'm just letting you know what the timetable is. And if we need to have folks come back after we've done the straw poll vote, which I just have to have for the floor, we can have them come back maybe this afternoon and talk about any of these things in depth. Yeah,
Important thing is to get the straw poll out so it goes to conference.
right. And then we can
Then we
have
have
further
2 more months to
conversation.
figure the rest of this out.
No, we don't. My adjournment pool is earlier than that. Be sure to do the adjournment pool, everybody. I'm a little more optimistic than.
Always.
Okay. Hope springs eternal. Where are we, Grady?
So I think we just have 3 more changes to go through.
Okay.
In section F108, again, the committee won't see this. This was in an amendment. Apologies that the Senate proposal of the unofficial version wasn't posted. It's on, again, the legislative website for the bill. You'll see in 108.1, this would add in a subsection C to that statute that's being amended in the prior section for state's attorneys for the Pay Act. This states that compensation for state's attorneys shall be reduced by 30% for any state's attorney who is not licensed or authorized to practice law in Vermont.
Yes, now that we have more ongoing problems. We did that with the sheriffs a couple of years ago. And just to remind you that the Constitution talks about how we do state's attorneys and sheriffs. And the Senate a few years ago tried to change to have a constitutional amendment. It didn't work. It will be up again. We've had how many more problems since the last time they tried it, like 6 different counties or something. So expect, if you're back, that the Senate will be working on this again next year. Is there a single county that hasn't had a problem? Hey, Marty. All right.
I would just flag for the committee that this section is effective on passage, which is why even though it's amending the same part of statute, it's separate from that F-108. And then the effective dates section. So the new C sections were added to the effective dates. Those are, of course, effective on passage, as is F-108.1 that the committee just reviewed. Sections E-111.1 and E-111.2, those are those changes to the cannabis excise tax split. Those are effective July 1, 2027, so effective for fiscal year 2028. And then this subsection E states that all of the positions in the bill, excluding the military positions, excluding limited service positions, that those sections are established, provided that the official state revenue forecast for the general fund approved by the emergency board at its July meeting has not been reduced by 1%, which would trigger that statutory rescission plan, or more from the estimates determined for the purposes of assuming this current fiscal year's appropriations. So if the E-board July meeting, the general fund has not been reduced by 1%, then the positions are created. And then in sub 2 says, or the revenue estimate has been downgraded by 1% or more. And the Joint Fiscal Committee then approves a rescission plan at its July meeting that does not rescind funding for the establishment of those positions. And then states any position in those sections for which funding has been rescinded shall not be established.
We're in a different world than we were a few years ago. Okay, Grady, thank you. We may ask you to come back and explain things. I think our heads are ready to fix, but we've been sitting here for 3 hours, and I appreciate everybody's patience in getting through this. It was really helpful, a lot of changes. But here we are. So, Representative Maricki, are you going to present a motion for a straw poll for a committee of conference?
I am, and I just want to check the wording because my proposal is not to agree what we've seen.
To not concur.
Not concur.
And request a committee of conference. Okay, is there a second?
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Turns out we don't actually need a second, but it's kind of nice to have a second. All right, any further discussion on this? This is a straw poll, which I'll be requesting this, assuming we all vote for it.
So yes was for it.
Yes means we want to not concur, and yes means we want a committee of conference.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Or they don't. All right, Trevor.
Yep. Representative Bloomley,
Yes.
Representative Dickinson. Aye. Representative Feltus,
Yes.
Senator Kaczynski,
Yes.
Representative LaRoche,
Yes.
Representative Rowicki,
Yes.
Representative Nigro,
Yes.
Representative Squirrel, yes, Representative Stephen,
Yeah.
Representative Yakaboni.
Yes.
And
Yes,
10-0.
that's good. That's what I typed up in my.
And you're.
There you go.
Feeling that might be the case. Thank you very much. In the first round of announcements, it's going to be asked to be suspend rules, take it up off the notice calendar. And then I will say my piece and the speaker will announce committee conference. And I expect that will happen tomorrow with the Senate, unless they're still on the floor. So it could go on for longer than that. Oh, yeah, we were going to do that today too. Can you all hang out for 30 seconds more and we vote on the libraries bill? We all remember the libraries bill? Thank you, Autumn.
We're a little overdue.
Yeah, otherwise we'd be overdue. Thank you, Tom. All right, is there a motion to
Just
pass?
Yes, sorry.
232.
232, is there a motion to pass? Thank you, Dave. Okay. Any questions on the library bill? You all good with that? The clerk is ready.
Representative Blumley.
Yes.
Representative Dick, Representative Feltus.
Yes.
Representative Kaczynska.
Yes.
Representative Roche. Representative Rowicki.
Yes.
Representative Nigro.
Yes.
Yes. Representative Stephen.
Yes.
Representative Jackson Boney.
Yes.
Representative Shaw.
Yes,
10-0-1.
and this actually is Lynn's. I don't know, if I'm happy to just let Nigel know if you copy me on it to say Lynn is out, but she's the reporter or whatever we have to do. But it'll be on next week.
I'll send it to her, but I'll also copy.
Right, that would be great. Okay. Committee